How are you guys doing?
Second
Hope you guys
cup.
are doing well. What are we going to talk about today, Dad?
Well, we're going to talk about training, I presume, dog training.
Training, dog training. Any specific types of
Or
dog training? Or
no money down real estate? I don't know. It's like, yeah, this is about dog training, isn't it?
Dog training,
let's
yes.
Keep real. We're going to talk about science-based fun and games, lure-reward dog training that is quick, easy, and effective, so that people like these people here in our living room enjoy it and do it.
That sounds cool.
Yeah.
I like science. I like fun. Those are some of my favorite things. Why are we talking about it? Why is this dog training so important?
It improves the relationship. You know, without training, the relationship goes downhill and people get upset because this dog's not doing what they want, but they never told them what they want to do and they never rewarded them for doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, more serious side, I mean, it saves lives.
How so?
Well, you know, when dogs don't do what owners want, they get relegated. I mean, you know, the owners give them the run of the house when they get them, so the dog develops doggy habits, and he's chewing and he's barking and he's peeing here, you know, using the bedroom as a toilet. So they put the dog outside, where it then digs, learns to bark, fence, chase, you know. So they put it in the basement or garage.
Okay.
You know, and it eventually then ends up further confined in a shelter. But it's not the lovely dog dying for an education that came to them. It's a dog now with some considerable behavioral baggage. And because he's been in the garage, he's been desocializing. So now we have a dog in a shelter and they're trying to give him a second chance. Whereas what the dog should have had is a first chance.
Yeah. Okay.
So this is all about giving your dog, whether it's a puppy you're going to get, a puppy you've got, an adult dog you're going to adopt, or a dog you've been living with for 10 years. Give him the chance he deserves, which is an education. And then you'll enjoy living with him just so much more.
Wow. Okay. So you think a lot of the dogs in shelters could have been kept from those shelters with a little fun and games, science-based dog training?
Absolutely. I mean, this is not rocket science. It's so simple what owners want. You know, dogs only do a few things wrong, and they're all so easily preventable and so easily correctable. The big one that takes time to change, though, is fearfulness. Because of the confinement, the socialization goes downhill, and when you have a dog that is anxious or fearful, that's going to take months to resolve. And that's just so unfair to put dogs through that. You know, it's not fun being anxious.
Right. I bet there are some people at home watching this right now who have dogs that are starting to bark, starting to chew, or, as you say, getting
or
desocialized.
Do it on a regular basis.
Right. Or
they wake up, they
or
pee on the
veterans.
bed, you know, and or the owners go out and they pee in the kitchen.
And so some of you guys are probably getting to the point where you're starting to get frustrated with your dogs and not knowing how to fix these problems. And you know, sadly, a lot of these dogs are probably starting to get put away in the garage or the basement, not getting the socialization they need. So who is this webinar for?
Well, for anyone who, you know, has a dog, thinking of getting a dog, or who just likes dogs. I mean, you know, we're talking about training dogs, but it applies to all animals, humans included. It's not just about changing behavior, using a little science and a little bit of heart. And
my behavior has been modified for the past 32 years.
It absolutely has, Jamie.
34.
And now you're passing on the skills to Lily and Mara. And it's indeed a joy to watch, I must admit.
The fun and games behavior modifications for humans, too. Okay, so what specifically are we going to do today?
Well, we're going to
webinar.
talk, as I remember it, we're going to talk about the 3 big myths in dog training.
3 big myths.
And
that sounds like it's worth a poster board flip.
And because they're
3 big myths.
And we're hopefully going to bust them. And I shall give for each myth, I'll give the audience some very easy tips, tricks, exercises that they can try at home as soon as the webinar finishes, or actually while we're doing the webinar. You know, if they can multitask, if they can listen to me and do it at the same time.
I would advise not trying that. Just listen and then do it at the end.
Jamie, the audience is almost entirely women. Of course, they can multitask.
They're probably watching on their smartphone.
Yeah, they're probably checking, messages and making phone calls now and buying online, right? As but yet taking in the information.
Yes. Would you say these exercises are going to be easy and effective?
They are going to be quick, easy, and effective.
Ooh, wonderful.
And fun. Because, one of the biggest things to make something effective is that it's fun to do. It's huge. And from a science base, it means you're reward training instead of punishment training. And reward training always wins hands down in terms of speed, ease, and effectiveness.
I always find when I'm trying to do something, it's better if it's fun. Otherwise, I'm not very likely to do it.
Yes, I know.
I don't know if any of you guys are like that as well. So these are exercises that people are going to be able to do today, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
You're going to be able to turn around and start training your dog in a few minutes.
At home or trip to the park.
Yeah, sounds pretty good. Why should people listen to you? Who are you to be telling these people about their dogs?
That's a point. Good point. Yeah.
Hopefully you have a good answer.
Well, I was thinking some of the people know who I am and have been listening to me for years. And I guess I hope that's why they continue to listen to me. They get good stuff. But most people out there don't know who I am. Well, I guess I grew up with animals. I grew up on a farm. And by the time I was 5, I had mastered a 200 chicken recall and an 80 cow recall.
Wow.
And my grandfather taught me, precious bits of advice, like, to touch an animal is an earned privilege. It's not a right. So I learned all these things like classical conditioning and positive reinforcement back then, verbal feedback. But of course, my grandpa, since he left school at 12, he didn't know the terms and the acronyms that we use today. But, I guess people are more interested in my professional qualifications. I went to the Royal Veterinary College in London when I graduated.
The Royal Veterinary College.
Yes, the Royal Veterinary College.
How fancy.
And then I came to California and started for a PhD in animal behavior at University of California, Berkeley. And then I did
I've
research.
Heard of that one as well.
Yes, just down the road, in fact. And then I did research on dog behavior for about 10 years. And then we started serious puppy training. And we've trained well over 100,000 puppies.
Wow.
And that gives us a good...
I wish I'd made a poster board for that. 100,000, that's a number worth writing down.
Yeah, we should have done. It gives you tremendous hindsight in what should have been done. We can look at a puppy at a point in time, and then 3 months later, we see the ones that got it right and are now having a great life with the owners, and the ones that failed and why they failed. And it's just very easy to work out what people have to do when living with the dog.
Okay, so when you started Sirius, what was the state of dog training, puppy training? How did Sirius come on the scene? It
was probably at the lowest point in history for hundreds of years.
Oh, that's not good. It had gone downhill?
Oh, yeah. The old way was great. I mean, my great-grandfather won a plowing contest, a straight furrow plowing contest, on a horse, his horse-drawn plow, with no reins or bridle, just using verbal instructions and feedback. Come on, got it. Right. Well, good horse. And that was the way, all this stuff that we think is so new now is actually so old.
Talking?
It's new again. Yeah. But talking to your dog. You're right. Verbal feedback has disappeared from dog training.
Revolutionary, cutting edge stuff.
And that's what I want to bring back. Talk to your dog. But, Conrad Mose came in and put the dogs on leash, didn't train them until they're adults, no instructions what to do. They just jerked the dog for getting it wrong.
Doesn't sound very fun.
And so I went to classes in the 70s because I was thinking of getting a puppy. And first, it just didn't make sense to me. There was no rhyme or reason. They weren't taking into account, the dog's point of view, how dogs learn. It was just methodological. Do this, have a 6-foot leash, step forward on your left foot, now jerk, don't give the command twice. And all these rules that did not make sense in terms of teaching your best friend. It was more like how to deal with your adversary in the training arena,
Or programming a robot.
But from the view of a scientist, the methods were not very effective. And so they were time-consuming. The methods were complicated, and so they were time-consuming. And so you see, this is not what owners want.
No.
I mean, you, me.
I want it quick. I want it fun.
And easy.
And easy.
Quick and easy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and fun. And so it was a very interesting time because I was lecturing about this stuff, but what I was lecturing about was about nothing that was done in dog training classes. I wouldn't do that. I don't have the time to spend 3 years in class training my dog just to do a 1-minute sit stay. I want to do that in one session, you know?
Yeah.
And the dogs were all on leash, which is silly because you can't see the problem. The first thing I do with a dog and an owner is I say, right, let him off leash. I say, yeah, there's your problem. Where's your dog? In Nebraska. You know,
not a good sign.
Not a good sign. So we can work with the problem now. The leash just masks the problem, but it actually turns it into another problem called pulling on leash. And then we develop all of this equipment to stop the dog from pulling. Halters, harnesses, collars with pointed spikes in, shock collars. Whereas in reality, you just have a dog that doesn't want to walk next to you. And I can prove it by cutting your leash. Where's your dog? He's sniffing another dog's butt over there, which is something we should reflect on. You're here the owner, but your dog went, do you want to walk next to the owner's side or sniff another dog's rectum? Rectum.
Well, hey, don't knock it till you've tried it.
We're getting
actually now that we got a 15-month-old baby, I'm frequently sniffing butts.
Oh, don't.
Is that a poop? Is that a poop?
I used to use Omaha, my Malamute, to sniff yours. He used to do the butt check. I said,
that's good outsourcing.
Does he need a change, Omaha? No, he's clean. You know.
Okay, so when Sirius came on the scene, state of dog training was not so great, but Sirius was an improvement.
Yes, and it happened. This wasn't something I worked out, oh, we'll do something for the betterment of dog kind. I will teach puppy classes off leash using science-based, very effective, quick and easy methods. It was actually
for the betterment of humanity. Really.
You know the story. Well, it was the betterment of humanity. It was your mum's humanity when Mimi did the intervention, and Mimi had a great job. So I was kind of like a house husband, and I was renovating the house. I mean, I wasn't lying there watching the TV. But one day she came to me and she said, right, she gave me a cigar. I said, I want you to sit on that rock. We're at Bodega Bay and not come back in this house for dinner until you can come back and tell me how you're going to bring money into this relationship. And of course I panicked. But I thought about it and I thought, well, boy, this is a change. It better be to do with dogs. And I thought, because I'd studied that for ages, you know, and then I thought, I know, I'm going to start a puppy school. And I thought, that's going to be so much fun, you know. So I came in and told Mimi, she was shocked. You said, you mean you have studied, you've been at university for 10 years now, you've got a couple of doctorates, and you're going to teach puppy school? I said, yeah. And it was an instant success. The vets loved it because I produced animals you could handle. The owners loved it because before their eyes, their puppy got trained off leash. I mean, before their eyes. Yeah. And the puppies loved it.
Yeah.
But most importantly, you know, I loved it. I remember.
Most importantly, yes, of course.
Well, it was. I was giving a radio interview one day and they said, so why did you start puppy classes? And I didn't tell them about the intervention. I thought that's too much information about my personal life. But I said, you know, for me, it's equivalent to the pub in England. In England, we go to the pub twice a day, lunch, and we're not like all alcoholics. It's where you go to socialize with all sorts of people. And I found in the States, being an academic, I always met the same sort of people, people who wanted to have deep academic conversations. Yet puppy classes, I met families. And this was like my fun. Yeah. 3 nights a week, 3 classes a night, I would meet all these people and I got to know them. And some of them I know to this day. Well, you know, from 35 years ago, you know, I'll have a lady come up to me and says, you don't remember me, do you? I had a little husky in class. I was 6. And I said, I know you.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you were one of my favorite owners, you know. And some of them I can remember from way back then.
Yeah. Okay, so
it's
that's
fun
serious.
And it works. It's fun and it works.
So people at home, though, they can't take a serious class.
No.
But do you think we can offer them some useful advice?
Dog training doesn't belong in classes. You know, you go to a class in your area, so a trainer can look at your dog and look for incipient signs that you're going off track. You know, the dog's slow to approach, or he's backing off from your son or your husband or strangers. But you train the dog at home. You train the dog by living with it. Every interaction you have with the dog is a training interaction.
Yeah.
And usually, you know, if you start with an adult dog new to your home, within 3 days he's getting it. By a week he's got it.
Yeah.
If you're doing it right.
Yeah.
But it's lots of little stuff in the home.
In the home. All right.
It's not a long training session.
Let's get to it. What's the first big myth?
Well, I guess the first big myth is, you know, that dog training doesn't work. It's boring. It's time consuming. I mean, dog training has got such a bad rap in the media. It has. And people think it's a drag. Whereas I think it's fantastic.
Okay. So if the myth is that dog training, it doesn't work, it's not pleasant. That means the reality is it does work and it's fun, right?
Well, actually, not necessarily, no. The fact of the matter is that most dog training techniques actually don't work. And no one even checks out that training is working. And this is where I'm so very different. So I'm a scientist looking at training. So as I'm training, I'm checking that the dog's behavior is improving. I'm quantifying or counting numbers. So don't let me frighten you by word like quantifying. Or I am just counting how many seconds the dog will sit still. And I'll start with the dog that will only sit still for 0.2 of a second. In one session, I can get it up to a minute.
Okay.
And so one of the biggest criteria I have is that dog training is effective, that it does in fact work.
Right, and measurably so.
Yeah, and then
quantifiably
I can measure how quickly it works. Whereas when you look at it, at a lot of dog training classes, you know, people are giving treats willy-nilly, or they're jerking the dog, shocking it, or they're clicking. But when you actually look at the rate of improvement, it's incredibly slow.
I feel like I've even heard you talk about situations where people are training their dog, but they're actually training it to do the opposite of what they want.
Oh, right? Yes. Oh, yes.
Do you have any examples of that?
I do. I mean, I guess, yeah, I would say going to the dog park is the biggest example.
Okay.
And
how so?
Well, if you give me a chance, I'll spit it out. You know,
tell me, Dad. Tell the people. The people want to know.
Okay, I will.
Hurry up.
And this is where people don't just get it wrong. They're like 180 degrees out of phase. It's like they're actually training their dog not to come when called. In the park. So here we go. They start off and they say, they daren't say, do you want to go for a walk? Because the dog will go crazy in the house. So now they have to say, do you want to go for a WALK? Well, you know, a border collie learns to spell in 3 trials. So now he goes over the top doing moon loops, you know, what? So what they do is they put the leash on. It's like, what are you doing? Putting the leash on a dog is the biggest reward there is, because it means we're going out. So you do that to reinforce moon looping behavior.
I see.
It's ridiculous. No, you should wait for the dog to sit. So instead they go out, they go down the street like this. The dog is pulling. Every step they take, they're reinforcing the pulling. Then they get to the park and the dog's bouncing, pulling, twisting, and they just take off the leash. It's insanity, you know? And,
why is that insanity, the taking off the leash?
Well, the dog should sit before you put it on. When you're walking, he should sit every couple of yards. So we're engaging with him, so we're focusing. So sit, walk, sit, walk. Now the walk reinforces the sit. When we get to the park, we should sit again. You know,
so
before
then
going
you get your dog under control.
Then you go in. Then you sit. Well, the point is, you see, all the things which are exciting the dog, so he's uncontrollable, are now being, rather than being distractions or excitants, they're becoming rewards we can use to train the dog to walk calmly to the park, to sit to go into the park, and to sit to have his leash off.
But that's not what's happening.
No, and then they ignore the dog for 30 minutes while he runs around like a banshee, sniffing every dog's butt in the place, chasing them, humping them, and setting up the biggest distraction to training you could ever have, a dog park, you know? And then they say, Rover, come. And the dog says, no, I'm sorry. You're boring. I live with you. I'm having the time of my life. I've never met so many rectums to sniff, you know. And so the dog doesn't come. So then the owner, it gets even worse. The owner says, come here. He shouts at the dog, come here, you son of a female dog, you know. So the dog says, I don't think so. I said, we have talked about this anger management before, and I know if I come to you, you're going to put on that leash in the play session, and you're going to maybe grab me and say, you bad dog, don't you ever do that again. And the dog says, no, I won't. Every time you say, come here, I'm going to stay away from you, you know.
So that's not the ideal way to lure a recall.
Wrong. I'm
curious, has anyone at home, does that resonate with anyone? Has anyone accidentally trained their dog to be hyperactive going on their walks?
Yeah.
Has
to
anyone
pull on leash,
trained their dog to not come by failing to engage at the park and getting the dog to come and then going home? Does that sound familiar to anyone out there? Also, by the way, I have occasionally been glancing at the chat, and I noticed there were a couple questions about one of your favorite phrases, idiopathic aggression. So we will make sure to touch on that at the end. But as I said, we'll save questions for the end. So if any of you have been having trouble with that kind of like out of control behavior on the way to the walk,
how about iatrogenic aggression?
Okay, we can save that for later as well. Yeah. That one's new to me.
Well, it means essential
for later.
For later. All right, at the end in the question session. Write down iatrogenic. All right.
So for these people who have accidentally been training their dog to not come when called, I bet they would like to know how to train their dog to come when called.
Well, there's many ways. I mean, we range from the best possible scenario to the worst possible scenario. So let's start up with the worst possible scenario, because that's what a lot of these people have. I believe in getting people to meet the beast.
All right.
To face up to their problem and solve it today. Okay. Rather than doing it wrong. Today we're going to do it right. So, I mean, I'll tell a story. And probably this is the hardest training gig I've ever had. When I was filming a TV program in Japan. So I'm still a star in Japan. But I don't get recognized in the States, you know. But in Japan, I get recognized in restaurants all over the place, you know, because the program was watched by over 20 million viewers. This is amazing. Anyway, so we're filming this Doberman. We go to the house. The dog has wrecked the house. I mean, he's eaten everything. He ate the child's picture, you know, a glass in a silver frame with glass, cracked the glass and trashed the kitchen. So I whip out the old Kong, put it on the floor, stuff, solves the problem. You know, dog turns from devil to angel in seconds. So we finished the morning session very early.
You said this was the hardest gig you'd ever had. So pretty easy.
I'm working into it. Sorry, my stories make it sometimes a little longer.
Following the narrative arc.
They want instruction, but entertainment is good too. And this is it's a good story. And I was sweating. I was panicked, but we got there in the end. And it's a testament to this method works. I was setting the stage that this dog is crazy.
Okay, yes.
Yeah, 2-year-old Doberman. So they said, right, then we'll wrap for today and we'll start tomorrow in a dog park. And I said, what are we going to do? He says, oh, you know, just do some training in the dog park. I thought, cool. So anyway, the call time, 6 a.m., which, as you know, is not good for me. And I stagger into the park, and here's the Doberman. And I just ask a few questions. Well, what are we going to do? And the director says, well, we want to do some off-leash recalls. I said, cool. And I was looking around. Most Japanese dog parks are the size of this living room. This one was a couple of 100 yards long. I'd never been to such a big park, you know, in Tokyo. And so I said, well, how many times have you been to the park? They said, oh, never. I said, well, how many times have you been to any park? They said, never.
What?
They said, we've never let him off leash.
What?
So I thought, well, this is going to be interesting. Having seen him off leash, they actually lied because he was off leash in the living room, which he used as an agility course. You know? So I said, all right, here's what we're going to do. Because you can only start training in a dog park after your dog comes to you. Okay. And here's the big mistake that people make. When the dog comes to them, they put him on leash and take him home. See, they take him to the dog park, let him off leash, don't train him for half an hour or an hour while he plays and has a good time. When he comes to them, click, they take him home. No, that's when training should begin, but they don't do it. So I said, look, we're going to let this dog off leash. Well, first I'm going to train a little on leash so he knows I'm a nice guy still, and I've got a big bag of food treats and toys and what have you. Then we're going to let him off leash. Then I'm going to go over the road and get a coffee.
Okay.
Well, you just keep an eye on the dog, and I should come back in 30 or 45 minutes. I'll keep an eye on him. So we let him off leash. This dog is amazing. He's like Bambi. He doesn't run like most dogs. He is bouncing like this. He's like, I'm free, I'm free. And he's looking right and left. He had obviously never been off leash. He'd never gambled. He had never galloped. He was so happy. And he wasn't playing with any of the dogs. He was just going up this end of the park, 100 yards, back this way. And I thought, right, I'll get my coffee. So I sort of got my coffee in the morning. It's like, this is not a good training. This is really a worst possible training scenario because it's in the morning, you know. And I came back and he's still galloping. But he's not playing with the dogs yet. You know, he's still happy he's off leash. And he's still looking at us a bit. So now I start to engage with him. And he runs by and I sort of say, yo, Dobie. And he sort of looks but gallops on. And so he's going by a few times. So I'm here. So I thought, well, I'll train another dog. So Dobie runs by. I toss him a food treat. He misses it. I mean, he's a Doberman. I mean, you know, they would never notice. But a beagle over there does. A little beagle 30 yards away. I think that was a food treat. Yeah. And sniffs it from 30 yards. Yes, that was a food. And he comes up and he finds the treat, you know, and then looks at me like this and trots over.
A treat dispensing man.
I start training the beagle. And then I notice Doberman's looking at me. And I say, good, beagle, do you want Doberman's food treat? I can't remember his name now. Let's say Baron. You know, you want Baron's food treat? So now he's starting to pay more attention. So I tell everyone, don't you touch for him or reach for him. One grab, we start from the beginning again. So eventually Doberman gets closer and closer. Now when he's 3 yards away, I toss the treat over his head. So don't toss it between him and you. He'll know the game. So treat over the head to increase the distance, and then 3 better treats between you and him.
Okay.
You get it? So kibble over the head, liver, liver, liver. Kibble over the head, liver, liver. Before you know it, he's by my side. Then I bend my arm so he touches me. Not me reach for it. When he touches me, I grab his collar. I say, Baron, gotcha. Treat, 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 treat. Baron, go play. And off I go.
Wow, I can see how that makes an impression.
Where's Baron now? He's following me. So now it starts. Come here, good boy, treat, back up, come here, good boy, treat, come here, gotcha. I always say gotcha when I got them by the collar, and then treat, treat, treat.
Right, but now
he's
gotcha's a good thing.
It's a good thing.
They love getting got.
And grabbing the collar is a good thing. Then I say, go play, and ignore him. So I disengage. And after a while, he wanders off a bit. I just let him go about 5, 6 yards. I say, hey, Baron, come here, pop, pop, pop. And I back up. Yeah. And he comes in and sit and collar and treat. That's what you now do all the time in the dog park. Don't let the dog play unattended. Engage with them. Integrate little training interludes into the play session. And then the play session becomes a reward. You see, every time you say, come here, sit, gotcha, you can then say, go play. We don't need treats anymore.
Oh, yeah.
Because go play is a much bigger reward than treats. So that's the worst possible training scenario, but it works in one session.
Right. I can see how that could be useful for people at home who, you know, have their dog. And as you say, the worst possible training scenario. Is there,
when they're going to the dog park,
a better possible training scenario?
Yes, of course.
I guess if that's the worst, there must be many better ones.
Yeah. I mean, we have the worst and then we have the best.
Okay. So for people who don't want to meet the beast. Not everyone's a meet the beast kind of person.
Yeah, and for people who may not go to dog parks or may not walk their dogs. Yeah, training begins in the kitchen.
Oh, man, we got to take down our little thing that says, good dog training works and it's lots of fun. The good dog training.
This is pretty high tech.
Yeah, I've got to make sure I'm using it.
I would have thought we have graphics that flash on the screen. You know, boom, good dog training works.
Back to our easy and effective exercises that people can try at home. How do you want people to...
In the kitchen, you reduce something as complicated as a recall through distractions to something very simple.
Okay.
1 yard recall and sit. Take the collar, give a treat. In the kitchen.
Just 1 yard?
One step.
Doesn't hardly seem worth it.
It does, because what's the most important part of a recall? Let's say you call your dog and he comes 90 yards, and when he's 2 yards from you, he goes off to sniff another dog. Yeah, It's the end of the recall that you want to practice.
The gotcha.
The last few steps and gotcha.
The gotcha.
So it's one step: come, sit, collar, treat. Repeat it in your kitchen. Don't feed the dog out of a bowl. Hand feed him. Kibble in training. Come, sit, collar, treat. Come, sit, collar, treat.
I know what people will say. There's going to be a lot of people who say, but my dog's not interested in food.
And that's a different thing. We make him interested in food, but the point is, if you don't feed him out of a bowl and you only hand feed him, soon that food will become equated to a treat. So, you know, I
never got that question, because it seems like if you don't, as you say, if you don't feed your dog from a food bowl and you use the food in training, all dogs are going to be food motivated eventually.
Well, on the one hand, they buy a really good quality dog food, and the dog may turn up his nose. He's not hungry that day. So then they feed him junk food treats.
Right.
And the dog says, I love sugar, I love fat, I love salt. You know, so now he's turning up his nose because he can get something better. And this is a case where good dog training works, and it's a lot of fun, especially when the dog trains you. And when you look at animals training people, I mean, when a cat trains a person, it's unbelievable. But anyway, back to the recall in the kitchen. I mean, a cat can train a person to shop at 3 a.m. for better cat food.
We'll save that for our next webinar.
Yeah, cat training 101.
Human training.
So anyway, in the kitchen, you start with a one-step recall. Come, sit, collar, treat, then 2 steps, then 3 steps, then 4, then 5. Now in different rooms of the house. Okay. Then you do it from room to room between different people. The dog's running from. Then you do it. Go to. We change it into a game. Go to Gina, and then Gina calls the dog, and then says, go to Kyle, and then Kyle calls the dog. And so now the recall becomes a fun game, which is very useful, because now if we lose Kyle, he's wandered out the front door, you know, and we say, hey, go find Kyle, and the dog can track him down.
All right. So if any of you guys at home are having trouble with your recall, you can fix that today. The first step.
Or often have people you lose.
Or often, or often have people you lose if you need a search and rescue, a personal search and rescue dog. The first step, though, get rid of the food bowl, because all of this training that we're going to be talking about today works so much better if your dog is interested in the food. And so you're going to start just in your kitchen with a 1-yard come, sit, collar, food treat.
Yeah, and the point of the collar is to prove that you could grab the collar, and to teach the dog that grabbing the collar is a good thing, because it's the #1 reason why dogs bite.
Right. And even if you do that one exercise, a one step,
you'll have a different dog.
Do it 20, 30 times a day. It will make a world of difference. So if you have trouble with recall, please do this today. As soon as this webinar is over, give it a shot. All right, let's get to myth number 2.
That would be, I don't have the time or the skill to train my dog.
That's correct.
The perception that people have is that training takes a long time, it's time consuming, and it's complicated.
Well, if that is the myth, then let's see. It means that people do have the skill and they do have the time. Does that sound about right?
I would say that training is quick and easy.
Training's quick and easy. Probably good training, huh?
But my answer would be no. Most dog training methods aren't quick and easy. See, all of what we're talking about today, it depends on the techniques you're using in training.
Okay.
And, you know, in the same way, we have to see the dog's point of view to make training work. You know, you can't say, would you rather have training or playing with other dogs? You have to integrate training into play, so the play becomes the reward you're using in training. Well, this is where we have to see the people's point of view. They don't want complicated and time-consuming. They want quick and easy. But the sad fact is most training techniques out there are really time-consuming. Anything that involves a leash, for example, because you're changing training from a quick and easy technique off leash to a 2-step method. First, you train the dog on leash. Well, you sort of think the dog's trained, but he ain't. It's just he can't get away from you, you know. But then you've got to train him when he's off leash, but that's more difficult now because the owner hasn't developed the off leash training skills, you know, and the leash has become a crutch. They daren't let the dog off leash. And some training techniques are amazingly complicated.
Okay.
I'll give you two techniques, opposite ends of the spectrum, like using a clicker in training or using a shock collar in training. To understand how those two things work and to use them effectively, I would say less than 0.01% of people use clickers or shock collars effectively in training.
1 in 1,000.
Yeah, the rest,
10,000.
Yeah, the rest are essentially just giving treats willy-nilly or clicking this and that, or they're shocking dogs willy-nilly, and which is not punishment by definition. It's just abusive.
Okay,
but the point is, the whole thing takes forever to do nothing, and it's complicated to understand. So dog training must be quick and easy.
So if those are the techniques that are difficult and time-consuming,
otherwise, I don't think I'd finish it. My dad, it's so funny, he spoke slowly, but in the middle of a sentence, if ever I interrupted him, he would say, however. So otherwise, if training is not easy, people can't do it. If it's not quick, they probably don't have the time to do it.
I couldn't agree more.
The floor is yours.
So my question is, for people who want to know the methods that are easy and the methods that are quick, what do we have for them?
Well,
and let me take this down while we're
strangely, what are we taking down now?
Everyone has the skill, and not training takes more time. Let's see if we can illuminate.
Oh, that's a very clever point. Yeah, it's not training that takes the time. It's when you don't train a dog. I once had this in class, and this lady left with her dog and wanted to go for a pee. So I watched her go through the door. And then she had to go through another door to get outside. And I would say it took her 45 seconds to go through each door. The leash around her leg. Now she put the dog on leash to go out, When she came back in, I said, let's work out how many times you go through a door with your dog. And we didn't, I can't remember what it was. It was something like 18 times a day going in and out. So you've got going out, through a door, you're getting in the car, getting out of the car, then getting in the car, And I worked out that she wasted 2 weeks, 24-hour days, to 14 24-hour days in her life going through doors with her dog. But this was in the lifespan of the dog. That was the time she was going to waste. No, it's sit, go on, going through a door when your dog's trained. So that is really cool. It's not training that takes the time. But training should be quick and easy. And strangely, some of the easiest techniques are the most effective. So a great example would be auto shaping. The all-time easiest technique on this planet.
Okay, let's hear a little bit more about that. The all-time easiest technique.
Well, the theory and then the practice. I'll tell you about that little story. So the theory is all you do is set up the scenario, and the dog will train himself.
Sorry, I just realized that my computer's not plugged in to the power cord. You start working on this. I'm just going to plug this in real quick.
Oh, I'll manage it. Okay, Jamie. Yeah, we don't want to lose power. That would be a disaster. Oh, we're down red lining. Red lining. The clock is ticking. 5, 4. Oh,
so, as you were saying.
Yeah, and so basically you set up the situation and the dog all but trains itself. Auto, meaning self-training, shaping. And so you can auto-shape house training, you can auto-shape chewing. And the story I was going to tell was about Claude. Remember our lovely Claude?
I remember Claude.
So Claude was
a sweet beast.
110-pound rot hound that was going to be euthanized for biting people and just nipping people. But that's what happens. People are scared about reactivity, whereas I look on it as proof of safety. The dog has bitten 3 people and they aren't in hospital. Well, he didn't really mean it, did he?
Right.
So
he's got bite inhibition.
Claude didn't even break the skin because he had bite inhibition. So, we adopted him. Well, I noticed his stomach was shaved. And so being the astute dog trainer and veterinarian that I am, I said, oh, his stomach's shaved. Was he had an operation? Well, it's like he's been spayed, but he's male, so, And they said, yeah, he ate a basketball. I said, what, a little toy basketball? No, a real basketball. I said, you are kidding me. I thought, oh, dear. So anyway, we get Claude home. And we had another little altercation in the car. We won't go through that. It's irrelevant, but it's hilarious. I rode across the Bay Bridge with my arm, petting him. We're in a truck, you know, my arm through the window to the truck thing. But he had come through his head. So here he is, this dog. He's just bitten me 4 times. I should have added that in when we selected him. His head's here. I can't move for 8 miles. We ride like that before we can get him out. Anyway, so we get him home. So I look at, you know, oh yeah, and we groom him with a Zoom groom, a sort of rubbery plastic toy. Put the Zoom groom down. That was it. It's like chewed it.
It's big, right?
It's this big. Jesus. Chewed it up and swallowed it before we could stop him. So the next few days, I'm going through his poop until we could piece the whole thing together. But this dog was a serious.
That sounds dangerous.
Yeah, I mean, it is. Chewing non-chew toys is a very dangerous habit because it's life-threatening, you know. And he ended up having, I think, 4 gastrotomies in his life, you know, for eating stuff. Not our fault. They were all other people giving him stupid stuff. But anyway, so I thought, well, I'd love to hand feed him so he likes me and doesn't bite me anymore, even though they didn't hurt. But I thought, no, it's all got to go in chew toys. We picked Kongs. And there's a lovely picture in this book. I don't know whether, why don't you see if you can find it with Kong doing his testimonial. So we got Kongs, which are chew toys made out of rubber, and they're hollow. And stuffed them with food. The only food he ate came from Kongs. And I guess it took about 4 days, where now all he ever wanted was a Kong to chew on. And that's important because it's the added benefits. It's great to teach the dog to be calm, to lie down, to give the dog a hobby. And you not find it. It'll be in the...
I found a couple nice pictures of Feeney, I think, with a Kong.
We don't. We want. Nice one. You talk to them. I'll find it. It's not important.
So use the chew toy, and that resolved his chewing problem.
There. So there's Claude, and you'll notice he has a massive basket of toys around him. And I actually loved his testimonial, which I wrote in the book. My name is Claude. I'm a Kongaholic. Hi, Claude. Welcome. Kong saved my life. I used to eat basketballs, which had to be surgically removed. Messy, dangerous. And he goes on. And he did. He became a Kongaholic. He could not function at any time. He'd wake up, he'd get a Kong. We'd come home, he'd get a Kong before he greeted us.
Better than getting a basketball or a Zoom groom.
Or anything else around the house. This house actually used to be the testing place for the 2 major manufacturers of dog chew toys, 2 major companies, and we tested them with Claude, very close. He failed 95% of toys instantly. Bite. That was it. And I would write back my report to the companies, and 50% of these toys are on the market now. I deemed them, these are dangerous. Dogs will eat them. Any big dog, any mastiff, any pit will they're dangerous.
So if anyone at home has one of these dogs that has a destructive chewing problem, how do they stuff a chew toy? How does that work?
Well, from his normal kibble, you don't feed from a food bowl. You probably hear this once or twice in this webinar. Instead, you first put in dry kibble into the Kong or a biscuit ball or a squirrel dude or what have you, and you put it on the floor. As soon as the dog touches it, kibble falls out. So now the dog is getting engaged with the ball. He noses it, more kibble, which rewards him for nosing it. He noses it more. So now we moisten the kibble and put it in, or a bit of honey, a bit of peanut butter to make it sticky. So it takes longer to get out. End of the day, because in the morning, if you're doing these type of things, using food in training or food in chew toys, you weigh out the food in the morning so you know exactly how much he's getting. At the end of the day, you put the food in water, moisten it until it turns to a sort of gooey paste, spoon it in the Kongs, put them in the freezer overnight, and there's his breakfast in the morning, Kongsicles.
All right.
And a Kongsicle would take probably about 35 minutes for the dog to empty. All the time he's lying down, and every bit of food that comes out, reward him for what he's doing. Well, he's chewing the chew toy, not your furniture or eating basketballs. He's lying down. He's not running round the house. He is being quiet. He's not barking. It's the quickest way to reprogram your dog's brain the easiest way, the quickest way, the most effective way. In the shortest amount of time, you will have a different dog.
Right.
I mean, the barking you can decimate, reduce by 90% in just 2 days of feeding dogs only from chew toys.
Wow.
It's cool.
That is impressive.
Yeah, it is impressive.
So do you guys see how a small investment of time just in the act of putting your dog's food into a hollow chew toy can actually save you a lot of time, not to mention, you know, pain and suffering, potentially heartache that comes from your dog chewing your other, you know, possessions, your furniture, potentially ingesting them, potentially going to the veterinary office. So it's a great example of where a little smart dog training actually saves you time.
Just, you know, pick
and
one,
requires no skill.
One annoying behavior, barking. Say you have 2 annoying little dogs, you know, a Dachshund and a Cocoa Puff or something like that. And anything that happens, a bird lands on a tree 3 blocks away. We now have a very clear instruction to the dog, rather than saying, shut up, get out. And so the dog, whoa, she's barking back. Whoa, a barking contest, you know. Instead, we can say, dogs, shush, get your kongs. And so now the instruction, instead of using a nasty punishment, which usually isn't a punishment, it's just abuse, you know, punishments would be cool if they actually worked. But if you continue punishing, they're obviously not working. So instead, we are very positive with our instruction. Shush, get your Kong.
And it's something they enjoy.
Absolutely. It is just going to change the dog's behavior repertoire within a matter of days.
So if any of you are having trouble with your dog, especially issues that are happening at home, especially issues where the dog's unsupervised, this is the perfect thing to do. As we said, get rid of the food bowl. What you need to do is feed your dog their regular food from hollow chew toys. Maybe a little later, I'll grab an example and show you what one of these Kongs look like if you're not familiar with it. It's our favorite, but what you're looking for is durable, hollow chew toy, and just put their kibble in it, give it to the dog, and you're halfway there. It will, as you said, decimate unwanted barking, destructive chewing, problems like that. All right, let's get to myth number 3. Are you reading the chat?
Yes, I was reading that question.
Don't answer their questions.
I won't.
Saving that till the end.
Lady with a cattle
myth
dog.
Number 3.
My dog can't be trained. Now, you know, I mean, I'll give a number of reasons.
Wait, let me guess. If the myth is my dog can't be trained, that means then the reality is my dog can be trained.
Yes. Of course every dog can be trained.
I got one.
Yeah, you got one right.
You think my ratio...
And every dog deserves to be trained.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I would go far to say that not to train.
Every dog can and should.
Is humane, and probably one of the big inhumanities that we do to animals, that we don't educate them, so they don't know what the rules are, so they break rules they don't know exist, so then we get frustrated and angry and the dog gets grief. It's not fair. Training is think of training as teaching animals ESL, English as a second language, educating them what to do and then motivating them to want to do it. But instead, you know, people will say, oh, he's too old, he's too young, he's too sick, he's handicapped, he's blind, he's deaf, he's, you know, wrong breed, he's too reactive. Or my all-time favorite was someone came to class and said, sorry, I didn't do the homework. I ate my dog's homework. What? Whatever. You know, people, and we laugh at it, and a lot of trainers will actually get on their high horse here and talk down to owners and say, oh, they're just excuses. No, this is how the owners feel. It is your job as a trainer to prove otherwise. To say, right, your dog can't be trained. Right, I'm putting $100 down here. I can train your dog a 1-minute sit stay before I leave this room. Or I'm betting you $1,000 I can train your dog a recall before I leave this dog park.
Never knew your classes were filled with such high-stakes gambling.
Usually I bet trainers who disagree with me and say, that can't be done. I say, I bet you. Pick 5 dogs for me. I'll pick 5 for you.
So old dogs, young dogs, blind dogs, deaf dogs, these dogs can be trained?
Yeah, we may have to make accommodations, say if the dog is deaf or blind. But no, you can't. Training starts today. I don't care how old your dog is. And I don't care how young it is. You know, the neonates are starting to learn right then. You know, we can't teach too young or too old. And the breed stuff really annoys me because I cannot stand articles that rank breeds in terms of, say, intelligence. Number one, it's the wrong thing because dog intelligence is very different from human intelligence. It should be ranked in trainability. But even so, it damns so many dogs because they say, I'm going to get a border collie. Why? Because they're so smart. So, I don't need to train him. So dog doesn't get trained. Or, well, I got an Afghan, they rank bottom on the chart, so I'm not going to bother training them. And other dogs too. And it's, no, of course an Afghan boom can be trained. And they will excel in some things like a recall. They'll certainly beat a Mastiff or a Beagle waddling in.
But we could speed that Beagle up too.
And an untrained border collie in your house is probably one of the biggest nightmares you don't want to have.
So if any dog can be trained, what have been some of the situations you found yourself in where you maybe questioned that? Like, have you ever been in a situation like, well, maybe this is not a workable scenario. Maybe these dogs can't be trained.
I'm going to say something, Jamie, which, I never usually say when, we're being filmed. But it's the truth. I'm actually not a great dog trainer.
Oh, yeah, I knew that.
No. There are probably a good 100 people listening to us out there who are much better at training dogs with me, more patient, more skillful, better at refining behavior. I do have a certain number of skills. And one is I have no shame. I don't mind if a dog makes fun of me or disses me. I don't even care if he disses me. I'll diss him back. I'll diss him back with sarcasm. I say, you call that dissing? I'll show you dissing, buddy. Okay. Hey, see this treat? Lovely. Or even better, see this treat? Give it to a Beagle, So I don't mind if the dog gets it wrong. I consider that another learning opportunity because, you see, if the dog's not getting it wrong and you teach him what's right, neutral, he gets it right. It's much bigger learning if he's getting it wrong and then he gets it right. The dog goes, oh, you mean when I run around and bark, you really want me to go to my bed, settle down and chew my comb? Good dog, and praise. But the other thing is I never give up.
Okay.
And the only time where it's not that I've given up, I've never approached the training, is I can just consider the dog too dangerous. He's killed people or he's mutilated them. I just say, I don't see the point. You're not going to teach this dog bite inhibition.
Right.
So the risk is always there. I'd much rather work with 1,000 dogs in the same time as I could spend with this one and give you no guarantee. I'd rather work with 1,000 dogs that have proven bite inhibition because they've nipped people and solved their problem quickly, But I guess the most challenging situations I've done is probably with dog reactive dogs because you've got so many variables. You've got, say, a bunch of dogs, they're all reactive.
Yeah.
And you've got a bunch of owners who are very reactive.
Right.
Very emotional.
Maybe
and very
under the surface,
reactive.
but...
Oh, no, it's coming out. They're tightening up. They're tightening on the leash. It's like as if they're like, because most dogs, with reactive dogs, if I interviewed them, they would say the same thing as the owner. The owner says, oh, my dog's cool. He's a good breed. He's well bred. He's great off leash, but on leash with little dogs or with big dogs or with shepherds, he just goes ballistic. So I interview the dog and say, tell me about your owner. She's great. Good pedigree. Good pedigree, 5th generation American. And she's a perfectly trustworthy off leash. She's wonderful, calm, wonderful person. On leash, though, she's a bit tricky, but around little dogs or shepherds, she goes crazy. She tightens the leash, she jerks, she gets sweaty, she smells like she's an ugly, fuming commercial town, And I think, what's wrong? So I have to say to the other dog, woo, 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 stay back, she's unstable. So basically, it's the owner's reaction is pure and simple negative classical conditioning. Instead of classically conditioning the dog to form the assumption that other dogs are good and make me happy, they've classically conditioned the dog that when other dogs appear, I'm going to lose it. Okay. So I normally do these classes. I like to do classes because then we can get them off leash with 8 dogs per class. I find working with just one dog is just too time consuming. It's going to take forever. So I like to do setups. I like to know all the dogs. I like to know all the dogs have bite inhibition. In Japan, they do it differently. So you give them a format. You have to tell them exactly what to do because that's what they do. I didn't say 8 dogs.
Well, it seems like an important detail, yes.
We have 42 dogs. And I would say 35 of them are miniature Dachshunds, Yorkies, or Chihuahuas.
And these are dog reactive dogs.
Well, no. One of the Goldens also bit people.
Okay.
He nipped me before I realized, and I said, and you should say, check they don't bite people too. So we got 42 dogs in a room, and they billed it as the bad dog class, which I didn't like. So I showed no, it's not a bad dog. He's just a dog who's a human who's unintentionally trained to be reactive by giving the wrong feedback. Okay. By not acknowledging that this will begin to happen at 5 to 8 months, and they should have prevented it at 3 months. They should continue preventing it until the dog dies, because there's nothing like dog-dog reactivity to ruin the dog's lifestyle. You know, no off-leash dog parks, so now on-leash walks, soon no on-leash walks, you know. And so we got 42 dogs. So essentially what we did is a process called all or none reward training.
Okay.
Because these dogs are not going to pay attention to you.
Right.
So you can't lure them. They're more interested in the other dogs. So I say, stand still. So all the dogs are on leash. We've tested that in their fights, they've never harmed another dog. We spread them out. Stand still, offer a treat. So this is the first temperament test.
Offer your dog a treat.
Yeah. Will the dog take a treat? If he doesn't, he's too stressed. So the ones that aren't taking treats, I move over this side and say, keep offering a treat. Then take a step, offer the treat again until he takes a treat. That's all you're doing. Okay. And I may actually move them outside of the room so they get used to taking a treat today at this place.
Right.
But in this room, it's too. But if they take the treat, we're off and running. So then I say, right, now take one step, take a treat again. Now, when you take the one step, all the dogs activate again. Like this. And that shows you shouldn't be walking with this dog.
Right.
If that's what one step does, imagine what 25 or 50 steps do. So one step, treat. Then do it again. Take a step, give a treat. No matter what the dog is doing. This is classical conditioning, you understand? Okay, it's all an unreward training, but we're starting off with classical conditioning. It doesn't matter if the dog's reacting, because classical conditioning will always win. And let's think about it. If he is going, oh, and then he turns to take the treat from him, what have you operantly conditioned him to do? To stop barking and turn his head away and look at you and take the treat. So it doesn't matter. You're actually training him to be a good dog anyway. Okay. So we do that, and then, you know, move around the room, stand still, give a treat, move around. So that's the first 10 minutes. By now, you'll notice the barking and the number of reactions has dramatically dropped. And the dogs are beginning to look at their owners. Now I say, right, look at your owner. Look at your dog. When I say now, look at your dog and answer the question, is he being good or not good? Okay. And I don't say good or bad because, well, we won't get into it. It's just, you know. And I say,
the point being, if he's not being bad.
Is he good or not bad?
Right.
Yeah. Is he being not bad or bad? Sorry, I got that wrong. So is he being not bad or bad? Because if you say good or bad, they'll say, no, he's not doing anything. That's the point.
Right. That's good. That's good.
The point. He's just standing
not
there.
Not bad is good.
In a room of 41 reactive dogs, he's just standing there. That is good. Trust me.
Very good.
That's why we're here, in fact, and why you paid a lot of money to come to this workshop. So now we list what is good. Well, he's not barking, not jumping, not eyeballing other dogs, not growling. He is looking at you. He is sitting.
Right.
He is
any one of these
up.
things.
Any one of these things, you give him a treat. We do that for another 10 minutes. Then I say, right, everyone look at your dogs. They're being good or bad. And they all say it's being good. Yeah, they're all sitting in front of the owners looking at them like this.
Waiting for their treats.
Yeah, and all we have done is said, good dog, and give them a treat. I said, yeah. From now on, you're not in the bad dog class. I didn't like that name. You're all in the good dog class. So all I'm teaching them is, you know, systematic observation and systematic feedback, because the biggest human foible we all have is we take the good for granted. There was no traffic going to the training center today. Yippee. There was no idiot on the road. You know, there was no really annoying person at the training center.
We're not currently experiencing internet connectivity issues.
That's it. Yay. As soon as anything goes wrong, oh my God, that stupid person. You know, so we take the good for granted and we moan and groan at the bad. And it's the biggest human foible we have. We take good dog behavior for granted and we react when there's bad, including when the dog reacts. So we pay attention to the bad. We're unintentionally training it in because we pay attention to it.
So for people who want to use all or none reward training at home today with their dog, maybe their dog's reactive or has some other issue. Any tips that would kind of be different from in the not bad dog class?
Yeah, absolutely. No food bowl.
No food bowl.
Back to this again.
No food bowl.
You know, the biggest advice I can give to any dog owner or dog trainer, and in fact, I gave it just last night to my Uber driver. You know, what do you do? Oh, I do this and this and this dog. I'm thinking of getting a Sholo. I said, wow, they're really neat dogs. Yeah. And I knew he had an 8-year-old daughter. We've been talking about her, and he had a wife. And I said, well, let me give you this little piece of advice. And it was, weigh out the food in the morning. Don't use a food bowl. Weigh out the food in the morning. Use it as lures and rewards in training as the day goes on. Come sit, treat. Come sit, treat. So now we're phasing it out as a reward, but we're still using it as a reward. Now 5 one-step come sits and a treat. Then heel sits. And then a 1-second down stay. Then a 5-second down stay. You know, use it as lures, rewards in training. And at the end of the day, moisten it, turn it to mush, stuff it in kongs for kongsicles in the morning. And you will have a different dog.
Right.
And you know, and what we're teaching them is pretty much systematic or representative observation and feedback.
Okay.
And so don't dwell on the bad things your dog does. He chews this, he chews that. If this is wrong, what is right? What would you like him to chew? Don't dwell on the fact that he jumps up on visitors. Think, how would you like him to greet visitors? You know, wearing a tuxedo, standing on his hind legs with a silver tray and a glass of sherry?
Sounds good.
How about sit? Yeah. So focus on what you want him to do and use the food to reward him to do it, which the dog will now perceive and love as a treat because you're occasionally hand feeding it rather than giving him a mass of kibble in a bowl.
So at the not bad dog class, you talked about just this all or none training. They just stood there and gave their dog a piece of food. Could people try that at home?
Absolutely.
That would, even though there's no other dogs around?
You know, dogs get so used to us doing our routine, which is mainly ignoring them. Okay. And I'm a culprit of that. And as Zuzu's getting older, I'm sort of conscious of the fact that this may be the last year or few years or last month. And so I'm changing it. So today, last night I went through, I was very tired, you know, from getting home. And I went through my routine of getting the paper from my neighbor. And, but this time we went in. So Zuzu could have a little play with my neighbor. Broke the routine. Came here, sat down, and I always massage her before I read the paper. So then I cross my legs, the signal, lie down while I read the paper. And I really want to read the paper, you know, because of the sports.
Yeah.
And anyway, so she lays down, and then I stand up.
Oh, you broke routine.
I broke routine. And she stands up and looks at me, and I just looked at her. And she did things. I said, good girl, Zuzu. Good girl. And she did all sorts of stuff. She laid down. And
she said she wasn't used to that attention at that time.
And then she went to get a Kong. And she threw all these behaviors at me, like, why are you standing up? And I kept saying, good girl, good girl. And, you know, there's so much the dogs are doing right. And, of course, the big thing is when they are lying down peacefully, take the time to go over and say, there's a good dog. It's like, I remember when you arrived in the house and 3 days old, you know, I took you from your mum and turned on the music, zapped up the volume. Poor old Mimi said, what's going on? So I'm just conditioning to the music. And so turn it down a bit. So put you down, got you to sleep. And then everyone's like, we had people around. Shh, Jamie, fall asleep. And I then go in and say, what are you doing going on? So I'm just going in to talk to him. He's asleep. That's the point. I want him to sleep and get used to me coming in, closing the door, talking to him in his sleep, you know. And so when your dog is lying down, you know, go over and say, there's a good dog. And
don't ignore your dog when they're being
no. And look at your sleeping dog and just dwell on it for a moment, because at the end of the road, you know, we all grieve, you know, for dogs that die, but for dogs that die tomorrow, they're alive and well today. Never forget that. And that's what you think about when you'll stroke that dog in a way you never stroked him before, because you're looking in his eyes and you tell him things like, I love you.
You're going to make me cry, Dad.
Yeah, it's okay. I know we got to continue. We can't cry. Okay.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
So
I should tell a joke.
So Right. All or none reward training. Very easy to do. Super simple. Basically, you just hand feed your dog and you don't ask him to do anything. You just hand feed your dog a piece, piece of kibble.
But the whole point of this was to get the dog to engage, whereupon now you can change to lure reward training, the quickest, easiest technique
once
there
you
is
have their
available.
attention.
So now we're really going to use some really good simple science to teach the dog. But you couldn't do that previously if the dog has his backside turned towards you, or if he's 25 yards away in the dog park.
Right. So this all or none works really well for the distracted dog.
To keep what you want to do there is to turn your distracted dog into one that sits and looks at you.
Okay, so I'm hoping that you guys at home got some useful information so far.
I hope so.
3 useful exercises.
It took me 3 cups of coffee
that you guys can work on today. Get your dog to come when called. Get your dog to eat their food out of a chew toy, become a chew toy-aholic.
Yes.
And resolve, barking, destructive chewing, all that. And then all or none reward training to capture your dog's existing good behavior and not ignore your dog when it's being good. But of course, this is just the tip of the iceberg. We
bet.
We have a lot more ideas we would love to share, but I'm guessing, for some of you, we were hoping to reach out to some people who aren't familiar with our training methods. And so for some of you, maybe this has been a lot of information already. So I'm wondering if you guys would be interested in a special offer just for you today. What do you think? You think they'd like to hear? Would you guys like to learn more, possibly?
Of course they would. They've probably been listening to this. Like, when will Ian forever shut up so we can get down to the nitty-gritty? Isn't this meant to be a webinar?
It is.
Anyway, yes,
it is. And we
do have interested, Jamie.
We do have a special
I'm interested
offer.
too. I want to know what the special offer is.
Well, the suspense is nearly over. We have put together a new product that we're hoping will be very useful to regular dog owners. You speak a lot to dog trainers over the years, veterinarians, but the bulk of people out there are just people with pet dogs. And so we put together the Dunbar's Dog Training Masterclass.
Dunbar's.
That's us. Yeah, we are both Dunbars.
Masterclass.
And the whole goal of this product was to look through all of your material over the past few decades and pick the best of the best material, the stuff that was going to be the easiest to use and the most useful for at-home dog training with pet dogs, looking at the most common, the most frustrating problems and figuring out how to get results quickly for people without complicated techniques, without harsh methods, fun. And then we're going to use, of course, science-based solutions. So we know these methods are effective. They're quantifiably effective. You'll be able to see the progress instantly. We start training your dog.
Am I quick? Get results fast. I'm sorry to distract you. Looking over my shoulder, and I do have a comment. I noticed a golden retriever hair on my jacket. So I'm just removing it. Anyway,
Zuzu will have questions about who you've been cheating on her with.
This is actually a good idea. Yeah, most of the information we offer it's just too vast. It's like other websites. It's just a mass of hours and hours and days of information, video and what have you.
So yeah, we put a lot of work.
I like this
into curating.
You did? That's brilliant.
Your copious material down to
cutting out the stories and get down to the nitty gritty.
Cutting down all the stories, but definitely focusing on solving problems easily and effectively. So you're probably wondering, what sort of topics are we talking about?
Barking, I bet.
There you go. Top of the list. Survey says barking. So yeah, we asked.
I could have just read the list off without looking at it.
We asked our our existing students and our fans what were the most frustrating problems they were having, and then we wanted to we pulled clips and elements from our courses to answer those problems. And so we've got barking. We've got how do you reduce unwanted barking by 90%? How do you get your dog to greet people politely by, as you say, sitting? Get your dog. We talked about it today. Come when called. Not just come when called, but really want to come when called because they want to be near you. And that's
it really is a reflection of the relationship that you call your dog and he doesn't come.
Right. And that's kind of the basis of a lot of this training is we're helping you build a relationship with your dog where your dog is motivated. They want to do what you want them to do because it's been fun. It's a part of this fun training experience. Pulling on leash. Oh, that's a nightmare for so many people. And I know so many people who, they can't walk their dog enjoyably anymore because yanking their, arm out of the socket. But it doesn't have to be that way. We can easily show you how to walk your dog calmly on leash. This, I think, is probably the biggest problem people are having out there right now. Huge, yeah. Reactivity. And it's so sad because it just destroys quality of life. And it's, as we were talking about with the all or none reward training, it's pretty simple to tackle. You know, if your dog is not causing damage, then that kind of reactivity is very solvable. And the Dunbar Dog Training Masterclass will cover it. Finally, separation anxiety, or sometimes misdiagnosed simply just a dog misbehaving while it's gone.
Absent misbehavior.
Yeah.
And another crippling problem. Yeah, I've always said these should be one-topic classes. It's kind of neat you put them into different modules.
Right.
You know, these don't belong in a basic manners class. You need basic manners first, but you got to teach them all separately and solve these quickly, because these are joy busters. I mean, these are things that make living with a dog a misery rather than, you know, the joy that it should be.
Now, these aren't the only elements in the masterclass that we put together, but these were the top things that came up over and over. But, you know, there's lots more. There's hyperactivity, house training, destructive chewing. We talk a lot about using food in training. In the masterclass, we explain how to phase the food out so you're not dependent on food for the dog's entire life. The food is really useful at the beginning, but phasing it out is key. One of my other favorite tricks that is in the masterclass is the ultra super sit. You get a very high reliability sit command, and that can make a world of difference because now you have the control when you need it.
That's your emergency command.
Right.
Yeah, sit or down, your choice.
So you've got the big frustrating problems. There's so much more. But, you know, you've heard us talk quite a bit today already. And we thought that maybe you'd be interested in hearing some words from some people who have used these methods themselves and had some luck with it. So we put together a nice little video of some of the people that you've trained or helped, you know, educate over the years. So yeah, we're gonna run those testimonials now.
Hey, I get to listen now.
I just started working with dogs, and the problem was it didn't really sit well for me. I didn't really, it just felt like this wasn't, I felt like there's got to be a better way. I wasn't seeing the results that I thought I should. So I started to do a little bit more research, and I went online and I started Googling dog behavior, and one name kept coming up over and over and over and over again. Ian Dunbar, Ian Dunbar, Ian Dunbar. I'm like, all right, who the heck is this guy? He's everywhere. Let me learn about him. And I started to read some books, his blogs, videos. I just started to soak it all in, and the more that I kind of learned, the more it all kind of, like everything kind of aligned for me, and I'm like, wow, that's exactly it.
Hello, so my name's Jack, I'm 20 years old, I currently live in England, and the only dog I own at the moment is this little man, Kevin, here. We've just been out on a little walk, because I was interested in looking at the dog training stuff, recommended I come have a look at a Dr. Ian Dunbar course, and I went along and I bought one of his online seminars. It was the 3-day science-based dog training with feeling, or words to that effect. And again, I knew nothing about dog training. So I was coming into this completely blind. So I watched those 3-day seminars. I loved them so much that I went ahead and bought all his other online seminars and workshops and just marathon them.
Hi, my name is Christina and I live in Virginia with my 8-year-old Husky Corgi mix, Harley. He was food aggressive, he was leash reactive, he was a space starter, and he had anxiety. A tremendous amount of anxiety. And so all of these problems made our first year very difficult. The knowledge that I've found and the techniques that I've started to use, like rewarding behavior with treats, redirecting, and just making things fun, really made a difference.
You know, I didn't come into the dog training world, or I'm not from the dog training world originally. So I just started with no knowledge. So to have him explain concepts like law reward training, positive reinforcement, all or none reward training, etc., and have that be my starting point, I think it's the greatest blessing I ever could have had, you know, as a whole. So on behalf of Kevin, on behalf of me, and I'm sure on behalf of a number of other positive reinforcement trainers who have discovered Dr. Ian Dunbar's work, his methodology, and his passion for helping teach dog trainers, dog owners, any dog professional, anyone even interested in dogs, his knowledge and talents. Thank you.
Oh,
all right, we're back. I hope you guys enjoyed that.
I did. Yeah, it was very, very sweet.
It is always nice to hear yourself be praised, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, no, it's nice to know when you slog all over the world, 9 months a year in hotels. It's nice to know you have actually touched a few people and they're carrying on with it, because they're much younger than I am.
Yep. Well, let's talk about the special offer we've got today. As we've said, the core of what we are offering you guys is the masterclass with the modules based on the most frustrating problems as well as the most useful tips that we've got. And we're valuing that here at $497. But that's not all. That's the foundation. That's the core. But we also wanted to put together something that was going to be convenient for people to listen to wherever they were, if they're on the go. So we created the Dunbar Expert Series audio series for $197. And it's 13 episodes of audio content where you're explaining a lot of really useful dog training concepts and covering, very common topics like house training, hyperactivity, fighting, new adult dog, new puppy. And, you can listen to it in the car, listen to it while you're walking your dog.
Yeah, I love recording those. They're really good. And these days, really useful. Everyone is like, video. But no, wonderful when you're driving. Audio is so underrated, I think.
Right. Or commuting on the train or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, you're probably noticing, Dad, that in all we were talking about with the masterclass and the common behavior problems and, the useful tricks, that something's missing.
Well, it seems to be more about troubleshooting existing problems, not too much on prevention.
And we know, if any of you guys at home have followed,
did I get it right?
Yes. Follow Dr. Dunbar. You know that we are all about the puppy training because we know that the training you do with the puppy is going to be much more effective and quicker than it is with an older dog. The puppies are more impressionable. They're still forming their habits. Socialization in particular is incredibly critical at that early stage. So we wanted to include, for anyone out there who does have a puppy or is thinking about getting a puppy.
I'm sorry, it's the high-tech presentation we have. But it works.
Only the best.
Yeah, but it works.
Even if we had a power outage, well, I guess this part would work. Anyway, the serious puppy training.
We could be talking here and we're working, but it wouldn't be spread to you folks.
We wanted to make sure that everyone has the puppy training information that is so fundamental, so important for anyone who has a puppy. So even if you yourself, you sign up for the class today, even if you don't need the puppy training information now, we want you to have it so you can share it with friends so that you'll have it in the future if you ever choose to get a puppy. Because if you start training your puppy from the day it comes home, everything's just so much easier.
Yeah.
But
and a lot of the info in the puppy training videos, they work just fine with adult dogs, with the exception of a lot of the puppy stuff is off-leash class-based, which you can't do with adult dogs if they are reactive. That's the only difference. So, the most important aspect of the puppy training is the temperament training, modifying the dog's temperament so he likes and feels confident around people. Otherwise, that's the way I train an adult dog. Don't get to, puppies, that's not interesting to us. That dog's 12, No, it's really cool. The other thing, I love these videos. It's like these are the first videos we did. And someone asked me the other day, have you ever re-edited? And I said, yes, I took out 2 little sections. One, a trainer of mine who was jerking the dog on leash. And 2, when talking to a little Amstaff, I raised my voice. And it's not necessary now. Back then, I thought it was. And just 2 minor little changes after 35 years.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty cool that we hit on this technique and it was just magical from the outset.
But That's not all, folks. That's my favorite part. I get to say that. For the first 50 people.
Do I have time to get more coffee?
Who register today? No, you do not.
For the first what?
The first 50 people who register today. Just the first 50. So if you're interested in this part, you're going to want to act fast. We are offering a signed copy of Dr. Dunbar's Good Little Dog book.
Signed by whom, might I ask?
By Dr. Dunbar himself.
That means I got to sign 50 books?
Well, 50 books, yeah. Maximum of 50.
Only the first 50.
Only the first 50.
Yeah.
So if you're interested, 50. This is one of our favorite little books. It is, as you saw, filled with lots of beautiful pictures, lots of step-by-step instructions, and it's a really great all-around book for pet dog training.
It is actually my favorite little book of all the books I've written. You know, I like this one the best because it is very simple. It's nitty-gritty, and I just really like the step-by-step. Woo, where is it? You know, step-by-step pictures.
Mm-hmm.
You know, alternative down. This is a good one.
So,
you know, under your leg. There we go. 1, 2, 3, 4.
If you add this all up together,
oh, sorry,
you get a total value, the package that we are offering today, of $1,038.
Phew.
So think about that. That sounds like
I think that's a lot of money.
Is a lot of money, but think about all the material that this represents. Decades of this is basically your lifetime's work.
I've never thought about it that way. Yes, so if we think about 45 years of experience, then that is priceless, as they say in the advertisements.
But I mean, the real question, though, in terms of value, is what this can do for you at home. And so, you know, the question is kind of what sort of problems you are currently facing with your dogs, and you know, what is the price tag essentially on that problem. And I guess another way to think of it would be like, what would be your alternatives in terms of resolving the problem? You recently did a seminar. How much did it cost to attend the seminar?
UK, $500.
$500. So that's just to come and see you
plus
lecture.
Hotel plus airfare. Yeah, it's actually. I think the word.
You'd easily spend $1,000.
Yeah, we shouldn't say price. We should say what is the value of this. It's huge that this is the way to deliver information these days. You know, a seminar is very expensive. When you probably can't go to a seminar and get out under $1,000, and that's just a 3-day seminar.
Yeah,
this is going to keep you watching and listening for a lot longer than 3 days.
Now, another option would be potentially to hire a private trainer. That could get up there pretty quickly too, is right?
If they're coming to your home, it's going to be pricey, and let's say $100 a visit. You know, or you could have board and train, so now you're talking several thousand. But of course, the downside is that when the dog comes back to you, he just, we're back with mum. Fine, get on the couch and bite people again.
If you're not learning how to train your dog, then
you have to train the dog yourself. You really do. And if someone's coming to your home, that's getting pricey. And like I said, with the problems, you're probably not going to learn them at classes, which are doing basic manners. You've got to go to a class for barking, one for leash walking, one for dog reactivity. So that's a pretty. I mean, I was you know me, I don't like big cells, and was a little embarrassed by all this. But no, it's a hell of a value. It's incredible. It's fantastic.
I think the real value is for the people who are struggling with problems that are really.
I am amused though that it's 1,038
and
why not 1,000?
92 cents,
15,
something like that.
1,500.
I mean, I think the real value though is for the people who have for you guys, any of you who have problems that are destroying your relationship with your dog and making it impossible to cherish the moments that make, you know, owning a pet dog so wonderful.
No, it really is. To get serious for a while, it's obviously I'm very concerned about dogs and their welfare and quality of life, and that if they knew what to do, you know, they would honestly do it for you if only they knew. So it comes down to communication, but more than dogs, I actually care about the people, you know, whose dog isn't trained or educated and doesn't know, and they're having miserable lives, and especially when they get forced into using other techniques, which aren't right, you know, and it's the people I feel sorry for, the children in the family. They know that jerking the dog isn't right, you know, and they know that mummy's shouting at the dog because he's peed on the floor isn't right. It's a major upsetting for people in the family. It has to work out. And when it works out, it's a joy. I mean, I cannot explain to you what it's like for me to live with a dog. I mean, she is everything to me. She's part of my life. When we do everything together, and we go through. She's good at good moments. She sits and watches all the gardening I do. Then she goes over and sits on it. Very good and bad moments. She's made me a better driver. If I she looks at me. I don't like shouting. I'm calmer, happier with the dog around because she doesn't have problems.
Right, because she wants to do what you want her to do.
She wants to be with me, and she doesn't have problems. Yeah.
Indeed.
So is that it?
Well, so this is what we would call the value, but we want to make this.
Oh, I knew there was going to be a but.
We want to make this accessible for people.
Yeah.
So we want to, set this at a price point that's going to get, the people who need it. It's going to get it into their hands. So we're going to be offering this to the public for $597. But for you guys today, you guys who have been with us for this webinar, and we, appreciate you guys joining us. It wouldn't be much fun if it was just us here by ourselves. We are going to be selling it.
Don't you have a
for a limited time for just $297. So it's a pretty good deal once you see the value that you're getting. If you're interested, you go to dunbartraining.com/go. That's dunbartraining.com/go. And we are only selling a limited number of registrations at this price. The partners that we're working with are only going to let us sell, a set number at this low price, and then they're going to cut it off.
But the first 50 get a signed copy
of the Good Little Dog
book. Yeah.
Get your signed copy of the book. So if you're interested in the signed copy of the book, make sure you register. Well, now would be the time if you're interested in the book, because we got I think like 1,000 people on this webinar at some point today. So I wouldn't be surprised if those 50 fill up quickly. We are offering a money back guarantee, so there's no risk. If you're thinking about it, feel free to sign up now. Check it out. If it's not what you were looking for, if it's not going to solve your problems, just let us know and we will refund you. No difficulties there. So yeah, this is an opportunity if you have problems with your dog to deal with those problems, to start, improving your relationship, getting your dog and your life back on track, having fun together, using science-based methods that are effective, that are measurable. You will start seeing improvements as soon as you start training. And even if you don't, sign up for this today, we hope that you will take what we've talked about today. And
come on, I mean, it's a steal, isn't it?
It is.
My life now, $297.
Well, I don't know about your life, your whole.
Well, the experience, professional experience. No, it jokes apart. It's a really good deal.
Yeah. So, dunbartraining.com/go.
I know how you could spend an awful lot more and get much less information.
Indeed.
You go online, check it out.
Or not train your dog and have them continue to be reactive.
No, that's not
an option.
You train the dog. Don't care which techniques you use, but if you want it trained quickly with a lot of fun, this is the way to do it.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys very much. We will hang out and answer questions.
Is that it?
As promised.
It's going to have some question time.
That is the end of our prepared
webinar.
Presentation.
Over.
Well,
it's a wrap.
Q&A beginning.
Q&A beginning. Okay.
So,
you're so positive, Jamie.
If you have
looking
questions,
forward,
we're going to try and look for questions that maybe multiple people have, so that we can, prioritize. But yeah, if you've got if you got questions, now's the time for them.
Hi.
All right, Shagay. I'm not sorry if I pronounced that wrong. Well done. Already registered. All right, we got a question.
Vincent says he wants his dog to have a good recall all the time. Anywhere, should I remove the food bowl? In initial training, yes, I would use food because it makes it so easy if you're not used to using your voice.
Hold on a sec. DunbarTraining.com does not exist. Did I get the URL wrong? Hopefully our back-end people will figure it out. DunbarTraining.com That's not what it is. Well, someone managed to register, so someone.
I will talk to Vincent.
You can keep talking.
Okay. Can they see me now?
Yeah, they can still see you.
Okay. And so, yeah, we want to start
No, it works.
teaching the recall in, there we are. That was it. Sorry, I'll talk to Vincent.
Oh, go today. Interesting.
Go today. Well,
Sorry, guys. It might be go/go-today. Okay, there we go. It automatically redirected me. Anyways, you were saying to Vincent.
Yeah, we use food to start with. We're going to phase it out pretty quickly, though, because usually if your dog is off leash, then that's where the biggest rewards are. So it's come here, go play. Come here, go play. Come here, go play. Now, that works well for a lot of dogs, like works well for my dog. I mean, because she's a very active dog. If you've got a slower moving dog, then I'd probably use an emergency sit or down. And so walking, say a pit bull, I would say, Rover, sit, go play, sit, go play. So you control the dog's behavior by sitting it in the environment. I actually prefer that because sometimes you don't want a dog running through the environment. You know, one of the reasons you're calling the dog is the environment's getting a little dodgy, maybe a couple of people on horseback or a bunch of children running. So you don't want your dog running too. So I like to say sit as my emergency command, and then I have many options. The usual one being sit, go play, which reinforces the reliable sit, or sit, stay, or sit, come slowly, because I've got the dog's attention now, so the dog will come. So I can say Rover, steady, steady, Rover, come, steady, and have him come slowly, like through at a cocktail party when everyone's drinking and you've got wall-to-wall beige carpets. Or I say sit and I run up to the dog, put it on leash. So I say sit to the dog, sit to the distance, and I do the recall. And so you practice this, whatever you want, the recall or the emergency sit, you practice first in the kitchen. One step, come sit, or just sit at one step away and you come back to the dog. Then you do 2 steps, then 3, then 4, then 5. Now you're in a bigger room, then different rooms, then in the garden, then in the garden with other people, maybe your garden or yard rather that's fenced with other dogs, then another person's yard. So different places, a fenced tennis court. Holiday Inn hallways are great, you know, come in, go up to the second floor, beautiful, you know, especially if you live in Nebraska in the winter or summer, it's heated or air conditioned. Lovely place to teach recalls or distance sits. You gradually increase the area, the distance, and the distractions. But, you know, Jamie and I just filmed this the other day. I wanted people to see how I live with my dog and what I do indoors and in the yard and when I walk. And the walk is off leash and it's Zuzu, sit. Good girl, go on. Because the environment is the reward. I didn't even have treats on me outside.
Right.
So we use food to start with, very important starter, but you've got to phase it out. That I think this is one of the biggest problems in reward training today.
And to reiterate, these are 2 modules that are in the masterclass. So we've got, you know, really great demonstration video of both phasing out food and then also coming when called. So it's a wonderful resource for those problems. All right, here's another question. Pam wants to know, how do you train multiple dogs? Let's say you got one dog with a bad behavior.
Either one at a time or dogs all at once. So, and we used to have 4 dogs here. They all have names. And I actually used to, we used to try training 3 of them at the same time. So Claude, Dune, and Hugo. And you say, Hugo, down. Good dog. Claude, sit. No, Hugo, down. So different dogs, 3 different positions. That's difficult. So either you train them individually, you know, or you train 4 dogs at the same time, easiest with the same command, dogs down, generic command, dogs come. And the dogs actually learn that when you say dogs, it's more of an emergency, a must-do situation. It's like guess at the house or in the park or in the car. Dogs, shush. It's, you know, that's how we do it. It's like asking the question, well, what if you have more than 1 child? How do you train them? Well, individually, that's great, one-on-one, but also together. And they train each other as well.
Right.
Claude was one of the best dogs I've had for training other dogs. Like when we would do downs and say we were fostering a dog or something, you know, Spazzo, I remember, and dogs down, because Spazzo's bzzz, Claude would just look at him and he would go, "Whoop, sorry." It was really interesting because he didn't do anything. There was no staring, no snapping. Sometimes he didn't even look. He would just go still. And this other dog would then sit or lie down or stand. And I have beautiful footage of that, but it's archaic. The formats we don't have anymore, probably, you know?
I saw a question. Someone was asking whether the master class has been approved for continued education units for professional dog training certification bodies. It's not currently been approved for these CEUs, but I guess we should actually look into that. That's a very good point. So we'll give that a shot. Next question. What about, let's say Heather wants to know how to deal with her dog who's not interested in food when people come over. So, you know, like trying to use the food for lure training.
So let's split that. We got two things, right? This will be a great question so you can get an insight into how my mind works. There's 2 points. We're not interested in food with the contingency when people come over. You see, because of course your dog's interested in food, otherwise it wouldn't be alive. And so I would change food into, how shall I put it, a mega secondary reinforcer, and that eating food is actually an instruction or a command you give to the dog. It's not an option like, here's a treat, I hope you like it. It's the same as sit. I don't mean sit if you'd like to, but if not, run in the street. Sit means sit now. So take it means take the food. So I would do that by turning the food into something more powerful. As is, it's a primary reinforcer. For some dogs, brilliant. For other dogs, less so. And so I would have this routine. We all know that click, treat, click, which was neutral, now becomes a secondary reinforcer, meaning a primary reinforcer, the treat is coming. I'm going to do the same thing with food, which is already a primary reinforcer. I'm going to say, sit, take it, eat the kibble on the couch. Sit, take it, eat the kibble, tummy rub. Sit, take it, eat the kibble, swallow the kibble, fetch. So I don't want the dog choking. So the dog will learn every time they ask me to sit and I eat a bit of kibble, all these good things happen. It's fantastic. So now kibble becomes not just a secondary reinforcer, but a mega secondary reinforcer because it predicts everything that's good in life. So one, I would do that. And of course, not feeding the dog out of a bowl. Most dogs will say, well, he doesn't like food. No, because you're pre-chewing steak and then heating it up for him and topping it with gravy in a bowl. No wonder he doesn't
steak with gravy. My favorite.
Jamie, don't laugh. You know, don't laugh.
Sorry,
these were behavior problem cases from the past. You know, a lady who used to get down on the kitchen floor and clean it because her dog would only eat if she cleaned the kitchen floor. I mean, I have some hilarious cases.
I will say that polite greetings, you know, having visitors coming over is a very, very common problem that people are having with their dogs.
Yeah.
And so, as you imagine, it's a big part of what we cover in the master class, which if you register now, you'll get your signed copy of Dr. Dunbar's Good Little Dog Book.
Now get to the contingency of when a person comes to the house. All right, so we know you've got great control over the dog here. He sits and he loves the food because the house is empty. It's you, the dog, and a piece of kibble, but not when the person's in the house. Well, let's split that down. There's a person in their house. Will the dog eat kibble now? Yeah. What if the person's in their car driving to your house? Will the dog eat the kibble? Yeah. You know, you see, it's the point of the front door, isn't it? Okay, so let's break this down. Let the owner stand at the end of the garden, open the front door, let the dog see her, then shut the door off the dog kibble. Now let's do it again with the person a yard closer, then a yard closer. Then let's do it with the person right here by the front door. Okay, will the dog take the kibble? If so, have the person put their foot a quarter of an inch over the threshold. You get it? Yeah. You do it bit by bit. You know, you always have, as I say, the best possible scenario, the worst possible scenario, or you have the point where your control over the dog starts to fail. Yes, she sits in the kitchen when you have a treat in your hand, but less so in the living room, much less so in the yard, and in the park, he develops park-induced deafness syndrome. When you say sits, it's never heard the word before, all right? So you've got to do this gradually. And I tell people, when walking your dog, why don't you practice leaving your house first? So sit, put the leash on, 1 step outside, sit, to check that you've got your keys and shut the door. 1 step, sit. 1 step, sit. When you get to the end of your driveway, don't walk around the block. Go 1 step this way, then come 1 step back, then go 1 step the other way, till now you're going back and forth 25 yards in front of your house. You get it? Doing it, and you've still got control over the dog. Next time, go 50 yards that way, 50 yards this way. Now to add a little something different, go 50 yards this way, cross the street, and then come 100 yards back, cross the street, you know.
Right, gradually expand.
Gradually. Before you know it, you're walking around the block. Good. Now try 2 blocks. Yeah. Same thing with the dog park. I remember the first time I took Omaha to the dog park, it took me half an hour to get in because he was so excited. He'd never seen a dog park before. He was pulling. And I thought, I'm sorry, you're not going to ruin my street cred by pulling Dr. Ian Dunbar to the dog park.
No.
So we started 50 yards back.
Yeah.
And whenever he tightened the leash, I said, silly boy, I estimated the distance between us and the park, and I walked backwards that distance. So now we would double the distance in the park, and we did it again. Eventually, he walked by my side, not heeling, he walked by my side, sat when I stopped, at the gate, went through it, sat, opened the next gate, through it, sat, and he remained in the sit-stay.
And all the people said, look, there's Dr. Dunbar with that well-behaved dog.
Whoa, Dr. Dunbar with quick and easy methods at work.
I got a quick question for you. What would you suggest for someone who wants to do the recall exercise, but they don't have access to a nice dog park or enclosed space? Like, so they've done it in their house. Yeah. And they want to move up to the next level, but they don't have a good park.
Be creative, you know, like we do when we're filming. Find someone who does.
Okay.
I mean, you know, go to friends that have a bigger house. They've got 5,000 square feet, or they have a small courtyard. You know, we have a little tiny fenced courtyard.
Could they use a long line? Would that be helpful? Or?
Yeah, you can. If the last resort, I would go out with a long line as long as the owner is not holding the other end. It's going to become a crutch. Instead, get one of those metal spiral stakes, stake it in the ground. You can have a 40-foot long line, so now you have an 80-foot diameter.
Or you could probably like clip it around a tree or something. You know,
or
like stationary. You
could have someone else hold the end of the old line, long line. But as soon as someone is walking the dog on a leash of any kind, especially including a flexi leash, or a long line, they're going to get out of control and the line becomes a crutch. And so it's really important that the anchor is a bolt, a tree, or someone else. You know, so walk your dog with someone, and then you can practice go-to recalls, yo-yo recalls. You know, because you call it to you, the owner calls it back. You call it to you, the owner calls it back. And that's great because it's always the same distance. So now you can time it. So now you reward only the quicker recalls and so on and so on. But be creative. You know, ask all your friends, do you have a fence yard or a courtyard or what have you, and train there. And you're much better off going to loads of little spaces that are different than thinking you want to do it in the big beyond. Yeah. Do it. It's step by step.
Okay, another quickie.
And another thing about dog parks, the best use of a dog park I know is not to go in it. Train outside of it, walk around it on leash, do it, stake the dog on a long line outside of the dog park. So you got a big distraction of all these dogs. There's a fence between them, because when you have a fence between animals, it increases essentially the frequency of any social behavior 40-fold. It's enormous, both happy, friendly behaviors or, you know, aggressive behaviors. So the level of the distraction when there's a fence in between is enormous. So do a lot of your training just outside the fence of a dog park.
Another quick one. What about what would you do with a dog that's anxious in the car?
Well, obviously not drive. And if you do drive, the dog has to be crated. But you do lots of work before you expect to go on an 8-hour drive, say from San Francisco to San Diego or something like that. So I would say every day, 4 times a day, dog's in the car with a stuffed Kong. To be safe, especially if the anxiety is expressed by chewing, I would have the dog in a crate. And that's the safety for travel anyway. And so in the car, and if he doesn't want to get in the car, you say, in the car, treat, treat, out of the car. In the car, treat, 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 out of the car. In the treat, treat, treat. And the treats,
they can eat their
kibble.
Their day's food in the car.
The whole thing, but stuffed in Kongs. So now in the car, because then the dog will settle down. Once the dog's doing that, we'll then do it with the engine running, but stationary. Okay. Then we're going to move to the next step. Now we're going to do it on some short drives. You're going to go round the block, stop. Round the block, stop. Okay. But you're not driving. You're riding shotgun, just talking to the dog, training him, giving him the odd treat, but he's got a stuffed Kong in there. But you're monitoring the dog and giving feedback. Have a friend that drives. Now we're ready for dog in the car with you driving.
Nice. What about a dog that eats dirt in the backyard?
Very bad habit and a dangerous one. If dogs eat anything in the backyard, apart from food that you buy and feed it, it's probably bad news. You know, I used to, when I was at the Royal Veterinary College, had a tremendous interest in poisons. And I could probably list 100 poisons in your backyard, coming from the dirt, plants, and weird poisons too. I mean, you can make a stew of these plant poisons in your yard that a tox screen would have tremendous difficulty interpreting. But, you know, mushroom, that's $1,000 and your dog's life's at risk, you know. Some mushrooms, he's dead in 3 days. That's it. I mean, one lick and he's gone. So there's a lot out there that's poisonous. Stones, bad news to eat those. So I'd never allow dogs to pick things up off the ground unless it's something to carry to me. So they can pick up tennis balls, tug toys, or things we instruct them to pick up because we dropped them, a bunch of car keys, but not food. So if we're doing off on the ground, I always pick up the treat before feeding it to the dog. It's a very bad habit for dogs to get into, picking up food from the ground. Hence, don't drop food in training class because you're training the dog this bad habit. And that's why I keep the food on a treat table, and anyone can come to the table and take 3 treats at a time or 5 treats to train the dog. Treats which are not crumbly or greasy, i.e. kibble, which we've amped up as a mega secondary. To prevent the dog from doing it, say on walks and things, have the dog carry a tennis ball in his mouth. Or actually a tug toy is better because if the dog drops his tennis ball, it will roll. So a tug toy, it's a mega secondary again. It's your tug toy. Periodically stop and play tug on the walk to engage him. Going out in the backyard, you've got to go with him. It's such a bad habit. There's many rules out there as in here that I do not use my backyard as a place for the dog to go on its own. Otherwise, it's going to create bad habits, sitting on plants, eating plants, fence fighting, barking, and eating stuff. It sounds silly, but it's a bad habit. And it's one of these things, you know, the more knowledge you have about poisons, the more you worry. But I've just known it, you know, it's pretty rare, but it happens. And some things are instantaneous. And before
we go more into poisons, I got another question here from Andrew, which I think is another popular one. And so, of course, we've got good demonstration footage in the
I don't know why I'm laughing about
masterclass.
Yeah, actually,
in the serious puppy training course, because his question is about his 6-month-old that likes to mouth his hands and arms. And how to deal with that.
Well, it's what dogs do. Years ago, how we developed the notion of bite inhibition, I had all of my students observe a litter of puppies, and this is how a scientist looks at behavior. I said, write down anything the puppies do until you have a list of every single behavior that they do, like lift a paw, touch another dog with his paw, yawn, scratch, or what have you. Good. Then we put them in a list. Now what we do is we watch in a systematic way. We time sample. We want to be representative. Otherwise, you'll only record the fights. You know, a lot of research goes off track here and says, oh, baboons kill each other. Why? It happened once. It's not representative to what they normally do, you know. So now we watch, and every minute I say now, and you have to write down what each puppy in the litter is doing in this order. Well, you're doing it this order, this person's doing another order, and so on. So now we're getting a very representative feedback of what the animals do basically every 5 seconds. You know, if we have like 8 people and we're recording them in different orders, but doing it once a minute, then we count up. And what we found was, without a doubt, the number one thing that puppies do if they're awake is bite another puppy. Then we ask questions. Why? Why do puppies have needle-sharp teeth? And why are puppies virtual biting machines? Why? List all the reasons. And there's many reasons why they bite, you know, play, boredom, annoyance, or what have you. But put the two together. Why do they have needle-sharp, deciduous teeth? And why do they bite all the time? The only answer that makes sense is so that weak jaws can inflict a lot of pain early on. So the puppy learns to inhibit the force of his bites with his own kind or others he grows up with, like people, so that when he has powerful jaws at 8 to 12 months that could bite your arm and it literally drops off, it doesn't cause any damage. Bite inhibition is the number one thing that dogs learn. Read the books, watch the videos. It's so important, okay? It saves dogs' lives. It is very difficult to socialize dogs so that they are never reactive towards other dogs or people. But of all these reactive dogs, less than 0.1% actually causes damage, necessitating, you know, a dog to go to the vet clinic or a person even to have holes in his skin. So the dog mouthing you is so important. However, you must get it under control. We teach the dog first, you know, no pain. So if he hurts you, say, ow, you worm, that hurt me. Don't do that, okay? If ever he impedes your function, he grabs your trouser legs when you're walking, ow, you pretend it hurts. So now it's just gentle stuff. And he probably thinks, oh, you're really namby-pamby, you know, I could bite a Shih Tzu harder than that, and I bite Dad, and he goes, ow, you hurt me. But you got to let him know. And then we tell him, no, mouthing's okay, you're still an adolescent, but it must stop when I say, off, get your chew toy. Then we teach him you must never mouth someone unless requested. This can be a disaster if people didn't know the dog, especially a disaster if your dog is big and dark, and especially a disaster if you've got a dog of a certain breed, a pit, a rottie, a shepherd. You'll be damned. When your dog's just play mouthing. So they do it because it is essential for life. They've got to be able to resolve arguments in the pack without mutilating each other. So they have incredible bite. And if you've ever seen a pack fight, oh my word, it's unbelievable. It's like, wow, all of the dogs piling in. And afterwards, there's no skin puncture. Everyone's wet as hell around the muzzle, you know, the muzzle and the neck and the head, ears all slobbery. That's what it's about. How to resolve arguments, you know, without causing harm. So it's cool, but you got to phase it out according to the rules. The very worst advice anyone can give you is never let the dog mouth. Great. So now you're living with a dog that doesn't have bite inhibition. And one day it might happen. You shut his tail in the car door and you will be mutilated. Yeah.
Don't want that.
It's so important. And the good thing is that children are natural bite inhibition teachers to dogs. Why? When they play, they're just like puppies playing with puppies. Child, just like another puppy. They jazz the other dogs up and get them out of control till the dog goes overboard and mouths too hard, and the child instantly and the dog will. And then mum comes in. What's going on here? What did you know? The dog learns you've got to be very gentle with these children. You know, we as adults should do the same. with some breeds, you know, like when I used to have Malamutes, when we had our Roddy Cross, American Bulldog. No, mouthing goes on for life, but only on cue. I'd play mouthing dames just to check they still have bite inhibition when I'm jazzing them up, playing tug and dancing with them and slapping them around on this, then say, okay, mouth me, that the dog is really gentle. Mm-hmm. It's important. But when, you know, dogs do it with no training, it's a sign they feel confident about you and they like you. It's very different from a dog biting you, believe you me. If they didn't like you, it would be, but they wouldn't stick around close and they wouldn't contact you. They wouldn't bite you and hang on. It would be bite, retreat. So mouthing is a real good sign and it's the reason why, say with Zoo, I let her mouth just a few people. First it was my neighbor and Jamie. Now we've included it to an office guy, you know, and Zuzu loves it. And I've said, is it okay with you? If you don't like it, you say, Zuzu, off, get a chew toy, you know, but that's her way of saying, I really like you. And good, Ian's not being boring today. He's got me out of the house and I'm actually doing something different rather than sitting watching him work, which is all he does.
So I should note, we figured out the reason some people were having some trouble with the link. You can't use www. I've used www.dunbartraining.com. It won't work. But if you just do dunbartraining.com/go, that should work out fine.
Who uses www these days? Even I don't do that.
Some people do.
They
I
do?
don't know.
That's amazing.
And I think we can get our tech people to redirect that. So hopefully in the future, if you do use www, it'll be fine. But I should note that this price will only be available for a couple days at most. And the books. If you want the signed copy of the book, you really do want to register now. We've had a lot of people sign up already, so there's not a lot of the signed books left. So if you're interested, if you want to get training, register now. As we said, there's the money back guarantee. So you can register now and check it out. No risk at all. All right.
That's good.
Another question for you. Can you use Kong feeding if you've got multiple dogs?
Yep.
Okay. Can you use Kong feeding if you have multiple dogs and one of the dogs is resource guarding?
Yep.
Okay. Is there anything that people should be aware of about how to do that?
They shouldn't feed dogs together if one dog gets very angry that other dog when food is around and causes other dogs harm. But what group of dogs? I mean, I've barely seen a group of dogs where one of them doesn't guard. I mean, I remember Phoenix and Oso, 6 Kongs. Phoenix has 6. These are the rules. I mean, bitches rewrote the rules of engagement. You know, dogs.
Also, will all the dogs still get enough to eat?
These are different questions, see? And we may have to make modifications. If we got 24 dogs, then I would say feed them all in crates, 24 crates, 24 Kongs.
Let's say we got 3 dogs.
Let's say we have 3 dogs, then we can feed them and watch them. And it's 3 Kongs. And we have individual Kongs for dogs, color coded. And we said, no, get your Kong. Or on your bed, lie down. When they leave the bed, they lose that Kong. We put them outside. They'll learn that one very quickly, by the way. Yeah. As soon as you leave your Kong, if it's not empty, you go outside till the other dogs are finished. What we don't want is a free-for-all. But if one dog snarls and snaps at another because another dog's eyeballing it, fine. It's what dogs do. And sometimes, and bitches especially, we found this in our research, that female dogs are far more possessive of items, and especially food items. I mean, they basically rewrote the hierarchical rules. You know, males have a very strong hierarchical structure. You know, 6 males, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Females say, no, well, the first female amendment to that is I have it and you don't.
Right.
And so she could keep, a very low-ranking female, easily keep food or a Kong away from a high-ranking male. Or we can tie the Kongs.
I saw one person's question was kind of saying that, like, they like the idea of stuffed Kongs, but they're worried about resource guarding. It seems like that's part of the reason why using a stuffed Kong would be so valuable, is to
it's no different
deal with that problem.
Than you're feeding out of bowls already. So what about resource guarding? You see, always we get these knee-jerk reactions to, here's a good idea, and then we say, yes, but what about resource guarding? I would say you're feeding out of bowls, but what about resource guarding? Do you get the dog now runs over and attacks any dog who tries to go up to a bowl? You see, it's the same problem with however you feed. Common sense. Watch your dogs eat for a number of reasons, you know, to make sure none of this silliness happens. And again, if you leave your Kong, you know, or leave your bed and the Kong outside until the other dogs are finished eating. I used to have 2 dogs, one gobble, gobble, gobble. The other one used to like to take forever.
Right.
And I want the dog to enjoy having the peace and quiet to take forever, not being looked at, but, you know. And if the dogs do growl and lunge, like you say, shush, shut up. Or if they growl, take their Kong away.
Right. And of course, the wonderful thing about chew toy training is making sure that you can take the you know, that they're not guarding it from you. You have to confront that problem if it's
no, that's different. But again, I'd come up with the same thing. When people say, "What about resource guarding?" It reminds me of Peter Sellers in a movie, a black and white movie from the late 50s, 60s, and he's I can't remember what you used to call it in England now, in charge of workers, a
manager?
Getting the workers together foreman? As a union, like a foreman, but there's it's something union, trade union, whatever. Anyway, one of the workers says, "Yeah, but what about the working man?" And he says, "Precisely, what about the working man?" You see, because you're going nowhere with a question like, what about resource guarding? The thing to ask is, but what about dogs? I have a dog that when food's around, she will attack another dog and put it in the vet clinic. You see the difference. Resource guarding is okay. It's what dogs do. I was watching two dogs. People do. I was watching 2 dogs play last night, and it was nonstop resource guarding. But the object changed. First, it was a tennis ball, and now both dogs wanted the tennis ball. Then it was a cow hoof. Yeah, and then it was a stick.
Sounds like preschool.
It didn't matter what the object was. It was guarding it and playing the game of keep away and chase. So the question is, what do dogs do when they resource guard? And the nitty gritty is, do they cause harm? Yes or no? If they cause harm, I got news for you. There ain't no cure for that. There is no way to really teach in a quick and easy way bite inhibition, dog. You know, if it's an adult dog that doesn't have bite inhibition. Yes, we can teach it when it's the more serious problem of resource guarding with people, because we can make ourselves safe, pad our arms up with Kevlar gloves, you know, feed the dog on a spoon, you know, which stops the biting very quickly. They clang on that spoon. They learn to take things very gently. Now we can use it with the gloves to, you know, and if it takes it quickly, ow, you say, you pretend it hurts. It doesn't, but you must pretend it does. So we can teach dogs bite inhibition in adults towards people, but not towards other dogs. So the whole resource guarding is a non-issue unless your dog causes harm in the process, which means it doesn't have bite inhibition.
On this topic of harm, sorry, Allison, it's taking me a little while to get through the question queue.
Oh, that's cute.
You might have to be more specific with a question. Allison says, in February, I had to put my Springer down for rage syndrome. I'm very sorry about that. It was the 5th time he sent someone to the hospital for stitches. He got my ribs, my calf. There was fat tissue hanging out of my arm. I feel like a failure as a dog owner, as an animal control officer, and as an aspiring behaviorist.
No.
And then this was also the person who wanted to know about idiopathic aggression.
Okay. So firstly, brilliant. Rage syndrome is usually a label that veterinarians and now the rest of the dog community will put on aggression when they don't understand it. They don't know its cause. It's idiopathic aggression. So
this means we don't know what it is.
It's a label for things we don't understand. It's like the same as UFO. What's that? It's okay, Jamie. It's a UFO. Oh, thank God. I thought I had to be scared. You see, it's the nominal fallacy. Academics think by naming something, we understand it. Okay. No, rage syndrome is quite understandable when you read all my stuff about subliminal bite stimuli. And basically, dogs don't bite for a single cause. That's why a lot of vets don't understand it, because the medical model, you have single cause, single etiology, gives single clinical sign. Okay. or multiple clinical signs rather. With behavior, we get the opposite. We have multiple causes, usually each subliminal cause a single behavior, biting. So we can totally understand and prevent what was called rage syndrome, and we can defuse it. We can resolve it as long as the dog has bite inhibition. But your dog didn't. Okay, it didn't. You know, yeah, it looks like the dog went over the top out of the blue, but that's the way the dogs work. It's all totally understandable. So what went wrong here? I would imagine the breeder, your veterinarian, you know, another trainer all gave you the same advice. Don't let the dog mouth you. And by so doing, sadly, they caused you to damn the dog. If you'd been socialized, so he then didn't develop all these subliminal stimuli didn't add up, that he loves children. He loved being grabbed by the collar, grabbed and shouted at and shook, and his ears handled and hugged and stared at. You know, we desensitized all these subliminal stimuli, so there was no reason for him to bite or attack. Then you wouldn't have known, because he wouldn't have done it, so there'd be no damage. So the whole thing about no bite inhibition, it lies as a sleeper, a wolf in sheep's clothing, until, boom, we spark him. And my worst example was a golden that used to go to hospices for children dying with cancer. We would go to visit them, been on hundreds of visits, and coming back, the handler, not the owner, you know, the handler didn't own the dog, shut the dog's tail in the car door, and it ripped the muscle from her forearm before she'd get it released. Totally sociable dog. Really friendly, loved people, loved children, but it had no bite inhibition, you see. And as I said, the worst instruction you could ever get. So it ain't your fault. It ain't your fault that a program I want to release in the future is letting owners know, look, you know, dog professions have blamed irresponsible ownership for far too long. They've got to wise up and realize, no, professions aren't doing what they should be doing. They're not giving the appropriate advice to prospective and new puppy owners. And the number one advice I always give to puppy owners is, he's going to mouth you. It's the most important thing they do. The more they mouth you as puppies, the less likelihood they will ever hurt anyone as adults. So that's what's going on here. And so many people have tried to solve it by labels. Rage syndrome, idiopathic aggression. It does nothing but just makes people scared of springers, because that was the breed associated with rage syndrome. Makes people scared with, you know, pit bulls, but it came out of nowhere. It was rage. It was an attack. It was unpredictable. There was no reason, no cause. I'm sorry. It's bullshit, bullshit, bullshit. It's very, sorry, Jamie. It's understandable, but it's unacceptable. It's unacceptable. Thank you. As was my language, and I'm sorry, but it gets me so upset when I see what owners go through because of silly training and husbandry advice. It's such a shame. The other term I used, and this would fall under this term too, is iatrogenic. Your dog suffered from an iatrogenic problem, and the term essentially comes from iatros, caused by the knife, or pretty much caused by the doctor. The treatment was the cause. The dumb advice you got was the reason why the dog did this and why it had to die, because he's really best off there. So just have a cry about it. It's okay. We all make mistakes, and you'll never do it again, I know. From now on, you'll be raising the most trustworthy puppies you have ever seen. That, you know, whatever you do in dogs, I think you said you worked as animal control. Cool. Then teach puppy classes, because you'll teach the best puppy classes, because you'll explain to everyone how important this annoying behavior, puppy biting, puppy mouthing is. But it gives that puppy the safety around children, idiot men that tease the dog and grab it, babies, other animals. It's what makes the dog safe.
All right. Unfortunately, guys, we got to start winding down. I think we got time for
I need more coffee.
One, maybe two more questions.
Okay, there's the question.
If you want to register, now's the time. DunbarTraining.com/go. Remember, this price is not going to last forever.
Coffee empty.
So Hank wants to know, how would you train a dog to not bark at kids when they go to pet him?
Whoa. Well, number one, I would say, kids, stop, back off. No way these children should be petting the dog.
So
if the
otherwise,
dog's
he's okay with kids, and he does love kids that he knows.
Yeah. And he loves kids pretty well, but not enough. So two things here, dogs and kids, and then barking. Okay.
Do you think the barking necessarily means the dog's uncomfortable with the kids? Or could it be
either overexcited or very uncomfortable? It doesn't matter which, neither is great around kids. A dog can just jump up and their paw hits their face, a lot of damage done. You know, really friendly dogs can cause a lot of damage, bumping a kid over or what have you. But point is, let's first care about your dog, because the kids may or may not be yours. I don't mean that. That sounded very ambiguous, doesn't it? I mean, I didn't know whether they were your children or children unfamiliar to you and the dog. So first, we'll do the barking first, because when a dog barks, it upsets people. So you've got to be able to stop it. The way we do that is we first teach the dog to bark on cue. Why? So that we can teach shush when we want to. Because when your dog's barking at a kid, that's not the best training scenario to teach the dog to shush on cue, because the dog's either excited, not paying attention, or upset, not paying attention. So all training on cue is 1, 2, 3, 4. So number one, you say, Rover, speak, speak. Number two, an accomplice goes and knocks on the door. Number three, the dog barks. Number four, you praise. Okay. Then number one, you say, Rover, shush. Number two, you waggle a food treat by the dog's nose. Number three, the dog sniffs, causing it to stop barking, because the two are mutually exclusive behaviors. Number four, you praise. Good dog one, good shush two, good shush three. Give the treat. Then you do it again. Woof shush sequence. Each time you increase a second of shush. Then you make sure woof shush works in every room of the house, in your yard, outside, every 25 yards on a walk, so that it works in different scenarios. Okay, so that's easy. Now we've got to socialize the dogs with children. So it seems like the dog's pretty okay once he's familiar with the kids. So we can probably work in a fairly safe, controlled setting. I would say your house. You need to invite children to your house. I would say 6 o'clock every day to do what? To hand feed the dog his dinner. Okay. Don't have the children approach the dog. Let them come in, say, whoa, look, children, and you hand feed. Wow, look, the little girls come to visit. Girls are better than boys because they listen to you. And they come in, and then we sit the little girl down, dog's off leash, and she tosses the food over the dog's head again, get the distance, and then food between where the dog is and her. So the dog's getting used to approaching, getting food. This is in the kitchen, so it's okay to get food from the floor, you know, and then she hand feeds. And then we do back and forth. I call the dog away. She calls the dog to her. Come and sit. We show her how. Come, sit, treat. Come, sit, treat. Come, sit, treat. Come, sit, treat. And we do this, I would say, every day. Find someone who has another child to come round. I would do the same little girl for 3 or 4 days to teach the dog the game. I want this dog not just to tolerate children, to thoroughly love them. Dogs can never be too well socialized around people, and especially men, and extra especially children. Hand feeding. So if you had any other problem, oh, we got a chewing problem or this or that, sorry, no food for that. All food hand fed by children in the evening. And now we can go to 2 children, and they call the dog back and forth, then 3 children, then 5 children, and so on and so on and so on. And obviously, you know, if you don't have this problem, you should be doing this anyway, with puppies, with adult dogs, you know. So the dog knows when it sees a child, it thinks, oh, great, and it runs up to them and sits. Do I get a treat now? Okay, and then you can teach the children how to tell the dog to woof and shush. They love it. I remember once with Phoenix, since we get to the end, I'll tell a story. I had a guy staying here. He's a famous animal behaviorist now in England, Danny Mills, a veterinary behaviorist, the first veterinary behaviorist in England. And I trained him up here. He wanted to get trained. So I said, well, come and stay. Can you mix concrete? I'm building steps in the garden. So he mixed concrete for 2 weeks, and I laid the steps. That's why it says Danny Boy at the top of the steps. So anyway, after 2 weeks, after 2 weeks, he says, well, can't we go somewhere? And I felt really embarrassed. I said, yeah, all right, let's go to San Francisco. So we go to San Francisco. And we're walking around, and every 25 yards, I say, Phoenix, speak. And she goes, woo, woo, woo. I said, Phoenix, shush. And after I'd done that about 6 times, he says, you didn't come to San Francisco for me, did you? You came for Phoenix to prove her woof, shush command. And I said, yeah. So then we went down to Ghirardelli Square to have a beer. And we're sitting at one of these metal tables, you know, a circular one. So we're having beers and had Phoenix lying down under the table. These 2 buses pull up with Japanese school children in. I mean, if you could imagine the commotion. And Phoenix sits up under the table, bangs her head, topples both beers, and goes, woo! Like, I mean, I had proofed her pretty, but I hadn't proofed her for two busloads of Japanese. So everybody in the outside bar looks at me like, oh, there's a guy with an aggressive wolf hybrid. You know, I mean, so Phoenix is a Malamute. And so I thought, oh, God, what do I do? So I said, Feeny, come here. Feeny, be a bear. Feeny, wave. Feeny, high five. High 4, like this. And then I said, Feeny, sit. Feeny, speak. And I gave this exaggerated hand signals. Everyone knows on command. And I said, Feeny, shush. So she goes, woof, shush. So everyone sees it's on cue. So they're all like relaxed and laugh because they were moving away, you know. The children saw it. One by one, they come up to Phoenix. They want a photo taken with Phoenix going like this and then going, woof, shush. By the end of the afternoon, Phoenix is like, should have charged him $1. It was hilarious, but it's really good proofing. You know? So
that's nice story.
Yeah, that's what you got to do. Always, when you get a problem, separate the salient things. Is it just the bite inhibition? In your case, no, it's children, and your dog is either too excited or too scared, and it's vocalizing. So deal with the vocalizing, deal with the dog's feelings inside. So the dog now is so excited when it sees children. It knows to sit and wait, and food will be coming. And that's when I do go walking on the streets. I usually carry a little bag, plastic bag of treats in case someone wants to pet my dog. And the rules are, after you've asked her to come and sit, here's a food treat, see if you know how to use it. And most of them do, because Zuzu knows how to do it. So she sees them with a treat and just sits. And I think that's brilliant. Well, it's a lot better than her mouthing them, you know.
So barking, mouthing, socialization, all these questions we've been getting, they are in the Dunbar Training Masterclass, which you can get today for $297. We're going to answer one more question. This will be the last question. I am very sorry
answering questions
if we didn't get to your question.
But I need more coffee.
There were
so many.
A lot of them. It's kind of overwhelming.
Have you picked a good one?
Yeah, I think so. There's a good one.
Who's this?
Carol says, my rescued Jack Russell Terrier was initially awesome till surgery to remove a rectal tumor.
Oh,
very sorry. During his month-long recovery, he transformed into a dog-dog reactive dog. The vet says don't let him near other dogs anymore, but I don't want to give up on him. He had bite inhibition suggestions.
Well, if
he still has it.
Yeah, if he had it with other dogs, probably still has it. Yeah, he's just had a little regression. Why? He was kept in solitary confinement.
So it seems like a pretty common situation. For whatever reason, the dog ends up developing some dog-dog reactivity.
I mean, number one, I would really... You see, I question the advice again. Keep your dog away from other dogs, like dog with a broken leg. You got a cast on him. Have you ever seen dogs play with a cast on?
I mean, I think the dog is healed now. I think it's...
Yeah, no, but I'm saying here's my questions. Did that change things? Was it the fact that your dog was kept away from other dogs in 1 month that caused this to happen? Could be. I would say unlikely. It's more that the dog has got older, a month older. Or it changed. You see, behavior is always changing. People think behavior is always the same. No, behavior is always in a state of constant flux. And if good thing happens, behaviors get better. If bad things happen, behavior gets worse. If nothing happens, the good things don't get better and they aren't reinforced, so they steadily get worse. So it could be a drift in behavior just because of time. It could be a sudden change. It could be the dog was having a bad hair day. That was all. Another dog sensed it and eyeballed him and they got into a fight, and then you changed immediately because it's one fight with dogs and it changes the owner. So the dog isn't walking the same owner anymore. He's walking a Jack Russell owner who is upset, concerned, embarrassed, and they're going to react very differently with that leash or with the dog off leash or what have you. So we don't know why. What we know is what? Get the dog out there and turn this around. From now on, this dog only gets fed with another dog in sight. How far away? Well, find out. Put your Jack Russell on leash and walk in a straight line towards a dog park. Tell me when the dog reacts, right? Now don't work there. Treble that distance and sit down and let your dog watch the other dogs and start his dinner. Then move 5 yards closer. Continue dinner, hand feeding kibble, then 5 yards closer. You may have to go backwards. If your dog growls once, double the distance backwards. Ignore the dog for a while. And then closer and closer. And you should probably do that anyway. Otherwise, the dog will work out, oh, it's horrible dogs there. We want the dog to work out it's the other dogs that are the key later on once the angst has disappeared. But then I would spend each day, we have dinner sitting outside the dog park. You go with a big bag and literally you hand feed. And you can do it one piece at a time, handful at a time. And then some water, because we don't want the dog to have a bunch of dry kibble in his stomach. We want water, then wait, then more. Wonderful classical conditioning. We can't do it all at once. And the worst setup is you walk around the street and here comes someone else with a Jack Russell Terrier that's also reactive on leash and you don't know it. You're both going to have a Barney. All right. So when you start to do the leash walking stuff, you want to work with dogs your dog knows. So you want to create a core social group. Who were his friends before? Reestablish that friendship. Why? What's the point of working with a dog that you know? You know the owner, so you can tell them that I have a big problem. Can you help me with this? I bet you half of them have the same problem. So you have the dogs on leash and do your own private little growl class. Dogs are on leash, you walk together, but 5 yards apart. But you feed the dogs. Then you all stretch out the 25 yards apart. You continue walking, but you ignore your dog. Then you coalesce into 4 yards apart and you get it? And the dog says, I don't like walking when those dogs are so distant. I like it when we're one big group. All right. And so once you've done that, you've now got your core social group. So now what you do is you split them into two. And a good size for a core social group is 5 or 6 dogs. Very manageable social group. Good owners, good dogs. Split them into 2. 3 walk around the block this way, spread out by 50, 100 yards. 3 go the other way. You do 10 laps. It's going to be a nice long walk, probably 1.5 miles, 2 miles. And you know for certain that you're going to have 30 greetings, but all with dogs and owners that you know. So the greeting goes like this. As soon as you see the other dog, oh, there's a cookie dog. Sit. Watch me. Good boy. Cookie dog's getting closer. He's getting closer. He's getting closer. And he's closer. And the people walking anti-clockwise, no, their job is that to come up to you and stop 5 yards away. What you do is you're rewarding your dog, okay? They're still approaching, and they stop 5 yards away. And then you all feed the dogs. Treat, 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 treat. Okay? And you do this 10 laps, 30 greetings. Then you reverse it. So now the other 3 dogs, are sitting immediately when they see a dog approaching and feeding it increasingly more treats, maybe better treats. This could be a time for some cheese and steak, as the dog gets really close. So the dog forms the association. God, my owner is so boring on walks. They frog march us around the block. There's no praise, no dialogue. They've got their face into the iPhone. I love it when they see another dog. And then they, look, it's a cookie dog, it's a whoo. And then I get more and more treats the closer. So now the association's made between other dogs and you being a nice, loving person and the dog getting loads of treats.
All right.
That's a good one to end on.
Sounds good. All right, guys, if you want to learn more, dunbartraining.com/go. Get your masterclass today with the serious puppy class, the expert audio series.
Okay. Thank you very much, folks. Thank you, Jamie. This has been fun.
We got the signed book. Signed book. Register now. All right. Well, thank you guys very much for joining us.
I'm going to get some more coffee. Thank you for being so
Cheers.
patient. Those of you still here. Bye.
Bye.